Chapter 666. After a day of torment in Chu Luiyue, he could finally return to his home and have a good rest. However, the Jiang residence on the other side was not so peaceful. After being detained for a day, Qi Dai was escorted to Jiang Yuqing's study at night. The cold wind was bone-chilling, and it seemed to freeze his bones. Even his heart was almost completely cold. The door was closed from behind. In front of him was Jiang Yuqing, who was sitting behind the table with a cold and dignified expression. The dim yellow light shone on his face, and it was cold and eerie. Qi Dai shivered all over. For a moment, his entire body stiffened and he could not move. Bang! Sun Qi kicked him in the knee from behind. Why aren't you kneeling when you see eldest young master? Qi Dai knelt on the ground with a plop in pain. The pain in his knee made his face pale. He finally reacted and hurriedly kowtowed. Spare me, eldest young master. Spare me, eldest young master. Jiang Yuqing looked at him expressionlessly. Tell me, what's going on with Xiaomu? Qi Dai paused and felt bitter in his heart. Eldest young master, I really don't know. Xiaomu is introverted and very timid. He doesn't even go out often. I don't know why he did this. Although he also had a lot of resentment towards Jiang Yuqing in his heart, he would at most complain a little in private. He would never dare to do anything. They knew very well what kind of person Jiang Yuqing was. It wasn't like they hadn't seen his methods before. How could they dare to go against him? But Xiaomu actually injured Jiang Yuqing. Even he was shocked for a long time when he heard that. Until now, he still couldn't understand why Xiaomu did this. You have the best relationship with him. Don't you know what he wants to do? Qi Dai wanted to cry but had no tears. I really don't know. Eldest young master, please understand. Everything was fine when I came here with Xiaomu today. Jiang Yuqing pondered for a moment. Xiaomu must have attacked him on the spur of the moment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used just one brush. However, when Xiaomu attacked, he was extremely steady, accurate, and ruthless. Jiang Yuqing even suspected that Xiaomu had long held a grudge against him, which was why he suddenly used so much strength. Has he ever told you that he harbors hatred for me? Qi Dai pondered for a moment, his expression conflicted. Jiang Yuqing raised his tone slightly, with a hint of coercion. Qi Dai hurriedly lowered his head and pressed his forehead against the ground. No. I really didn't. He followed this young master to the southern border. His face was ruined and he became a mute. Do you really not have any complaints? Jiang Yuqing didn't believe it. He knew in his heart how these people viewed him, but he didn't mind. In any case, they couldn't do anything. But now, Xiaomu had injured him. Of course, he would pursue the matter to the end. Qi Dai had no choice but to say this. He has always been loyal to the eldest young master. He wouldn't do this to you. Jiang Yuqing gave Sun Qi a look. Sun Qi immediately stepped forward and slapped Qi Dai hard. Slap. Tell the truth. If you lie, I'll cut off your tongue. Qi Dai lost 2 teeth and his mouth was full of blood. He opened his mouth, but something seemed to be stuck in his throat and he couldn't speak. Xiaomu had saved his life. He couldn't. Jiang Yuqing narrowed his eyes. How could he not see through Qi Dai's thoughts? Such stubbornness was obviously to protect Xiaomu. He suddenly asked, since you don't admit it, then I won't pursue this matter. Let me ask you, Xiaomu. Why did his cultivation suddenly regress to the peak of the 4th stage? Qi Dai was suddenly stunned. He raised his head and looked at Jiang Yuqing in a daze. Peak of the 4th stage. Impossible, he's still in the same realm as before. Although his body was seriously injured after returning and he couldn't advance no matter how hard he cultivated, he definitely didn't return to the peak of the 4th stage. A white light suddenly flashed in Jiang Yuqing's mind. He immediately stood up and stared at Qi Dai. Is what you said true? Are you sure that he's not at the peak of the 4th stage? Qi Dai didn't know why he was like this and only nodded blankly. Yes. Eldest young master, is there something wrong? Jiang Yuqing's expression changed quickly. So that's how it is, That Xiaomu was a fake. During this period of time, did you notice anything different about Xiaomu? He asked anxiously. Qi Dai thought for a long time and shook his head hesitantly. No. He's always been like that. Jiang Yuqing instantly thought of the appearance of that Xiaomu. He was thin and small, his face was full of scars, and he wore half an iron mask. Most importantly, he was mute. Such a person was extremely easy to disguise. Even if he silently changed into another person, who would be able to see the change when he stood there silently with his head lowered? Jiang Yuqing gradually clenched his fists. What he could confirm now was that the Xiaomu who injured him today wasn't the real Xiaomu. As for the real Xiaomu, he had probably been dealt with long ago. Unfortunately, he couldn't confirm when this person was changed, and he didn't know who would pretend to be Xiaomu and deliberately sneak into the Jiang residence. As long as that person removed his disguise and changed into his own appearance, who would know? Given the current situation, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to investigate this matter. Jiang Yuqing paced back and forth in the room in extreme frustration. As he walked, he kept looking at the brush on the table. Who could have such strength and movement skills? Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. Peak of the 4th stage, wasn't Chu Luiyue the one? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 667. A burst of burning pain suddenly came from his lower abdomen. Jiang Yuqing frowned, and his face instantly turned pale. Sun Qi immediately stepped forward and asked nervously, "Eldest young master, what's wrong?" Jiang Yuqing waved his hand. "Nothing. Take him down first." "Yes." Qi Dai was confused. He had already said what he needed to say. Why was the eldest young master still unwilling to let him go? He really didn't do anything to let the eldest young master down. Sun Qi walked to Qi Dai's side and glanced at Jiang Yuqing hesitantly. "Eldest young master," then, Jiang Yuqing gave him a look and was a little impatient. "Follow the plan." Sun Qi immediately agreed. A trace of uneasiness emerged in Qi Dai's heart. Follow the plan, what plan? His intuition told him that bang. Sun Qi's hand directly chopped Qi Dai until his 2 eyes rolled back and he fainted. Then, he personally dragged Qi Dai out. After the door was closed, Jiang Yuqing was the only one left in the room. He took a deep breath and walked towards the bed behind the screen. After taking off his clothes, he carefully examined the wound on his lower abdomen. The burning pain just now only appeared for a moment and then dissipated. A brush was stabbed straight in, causing a small wound. Plus, Feng Shangyuan had already treated it for him, so it was already getting better. But that strange burning pain really made Jiang Yuqing worried. He sat cross-legged, circulated his force, and carefully checked the situation in his body, but didn't find any problems. After thinking about it, he asked someone to invite Feng Shangyuan over. After hearing his description, Feng Shangyuan was also full of surprise. But after repeatedly checking Jiang Yuqing's pulse 3 times, he still didn't find anything wrong. This eldest young master doesn't seem to have any other problems apart from these injuries. What's the pain you mentioned? Jiang Yuqing frowned. It's like a fire, but it's fleeting. I checked myself and there's no problem, but this pain is really strange. He was cautious and suspicious by nature, not to mention that this matter involved his body. It was impossible for him not to care. Feng Shangyuan looked ashamed. It's probably because my medical skills aren't good enough. Why don't I find someone else to take a look at eldest young master? No. Jiang Yuqing shook his head. Feng Shangyuan was a little puzzled. Why? Zhuo Mingxi and the other lords are still reliable, and they probably won't reveal your body's condition. Those three heavenly doctors were Sheng Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing's confidants. If not, they wouldn't have been specially chosen to take care of the emperor. Jiang Yuqing didn't say anything, but his cold and solemn expression made Feng Shangyuan's heart race. Could it be that eldest young master no longer trusted those people? Now is a critical time. I can't reveal anything about my body's condition. Thus, even for the few of them, it was best for them to not know what to do. What of Jiang of those words of his? Feng Shangyuan did not ask further. Then I'll go back and look through the medical books to see if I can find anything. Jiang Yuqing nodded. After Feng Shangyuan left, Jiang Yuqing got up, walked to the table, and looked at the pen carefully. The blood stains on it had already dried. Other than the first time, he couldn't see any traces. Jiang Yuqing looked at the table with one hand and fell into deep thought. Did this matter have anything to do with Chu Luyue? In Xiling City, there were many martial artists at the peak of the 4th stage, but he couldn't think of anyone who had such guts and acted so accurately and ruthlessly. But Chu Luyue and Rong Xiu had alibis. Moreover, it was impossible for the people in the palace and Mu Qinghe to lie. It seemed that he could only slowly find an opportunity to probe, Jiang Yuqing thought with a frown. If it was really Chu Luyue, then where did the hatred she had for him come from? Knock knock. Just as Jiang Yuqing was puzzled, there was suddenly a series of hurried knocks on the door. Jiang Yuqing's expression turned cold. It was already so late, why was there still someone here? Before he could speak, a woman's sobbing voice came from outside the door. Big brother. Big brother, open the door. It was Jiang Yuji. Jiang Yuqing suppressed the anger in his heart and walked over to open the door. Jiang Yuji was actually wearing a veil that covered most of her face. What are you doing? Jiang Yuqing asked with a frown. Jiang Yuji's eyes were red, but Uncle Fu, who was following behind her, immediately knelt down. Eldest young master, please forgive me. It's all my fault. Jiang Yuqing's heart sank. He pulled her directly into the room and pulled off the veil on her face. Her face was bruised and swollen again. Jiang Yuji cried. Big brother, when I went out today, I was beaten up by that person again. Jiang Yuqing's temples were throbbing. There were too many things to complain about, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. He took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart with great difficulty. He looked at Uncle Fu. What's going on? On such a cold day, Uncle Fu was sweating profusely. He said nervously, Eldest young master, this old servant accompanied 4th Miss out today, but when we were settling the bill, 4th Miss disappeared. When this old servant found her again. I saw. 4th Miss was already like this. This old servant has failed in his duty, please punish me, eldest young master. Actually, Uncle Fu was also very wronged. He had been carefully accompanying Jiang Yuji the whole day. Who knew that in such a short time, the other party would actually make a move? Jiang Yuqing had already experienced countless troublesome things in this day, but he didn't expect that they still wouldn't stop in the middle of the night. The aura around him was cold and sinister. What's the use of punishing her now? The key is to find that person. This time, did you see what that person looked like? Jiang Yuji shook her head with tears in her eyes. Uncle Fu said, Eldest young master, since that person was able to quietly take forth miss away from this old servant, his strength must be above this old servant's. Jiang Yuqing's heart trembled slightly. Although Uncle Fu wasn't a top expert, he wasn't weak either. It would be easy for the other party to send a powerhouse of this level to take Jiang Yuji's life. But the other party didn't do so. This was clearly to torture Jiang Yuji. Thinking of this, he glanced at her and saw that Jiang Yuji looked aggrieved and there was deep fear in her eyes. Big brother. I won't go out in the future. Can you quickly find that person? Last time, Jiang Yuji was still extremely arrogant. Now that she had suffered, she instantly became obedient. Jiang Yuqing's heart ached and he was angry. In the end, he could only say, go back and recuperate first. Don't go out during this period of time. I will send someone to investigate this matter. Jiang Yuji didn't have any objections and agreed miserably. Jiang Yuqing didn't sleep well that night. He had nightmares. That faintly discernible burning sensation always reminded him of a big fire. And this time, in his sleep, he became the person in the fire. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 668. The next day, the news that someone had infiltrated the Jiang residence and tried to assassinate Jiang Yuqing spread throughout Xiling City. Of course, no one dared to talk about it openly, but they had all kinds of guesses in private. After all, Jiang Yuqing had offended too many people, and there were too many people who wanted his life. It was a long story. In the beginning, he was just an ordinary eldest son of the Jiang family, holding a position in the Imperial court that was neither important nor small. Because of his outstanding talent and family background, his future was bright. But in Xiling City, there were many outstanding young disciples. Jiang Yuqing wasn't the most outstanding one in all aspects. The reason why he was able to soar in these few years and reach his current position was all because of his engagement with the Empress concubine. Perhaps because of his outstanding appearance, or perhaps because of his good background and talent, the Empress concubine chose him to be her fiancé. After the engagement was set, his status immediately changed. Who didn't know that the Empress concubine would be the next empress? Moreover, the Empress concubine was born with a Tianjin Yuan meridian. In the hearts of the entire Tianling dynasty, she was the most respected person. In addition, the Empress concubine had done many things over the years, such as quelling rebellions, reducing taxes, and so on. Her reputation was once close to that of the current emperor. In the hearts of the people, she was different. She was a high and mighty existence that they could only look up to. And Jiang Yuqing became the Empress concubine's fiancé, so naturally, his status rose. Countless people secretly tried to rope him in and curry favor with him. This allowed Jiang Yuqing to quickly accumulate connections. Later, as his marriage with the Empress concubine gradually progressed, his relationship with the Empress concubine also became closer. He learned a lot by following her. After that, the Empress concubine would give some things to him to handle. He naturally became the person who understood the Empress concubine's style and methods the most. After the Empress concubine passed away, the Imperial court was in chaos. He quickly joined forces with the third princess and used thunderous methods to suppress them. At the same time, he eliminated a portion of the people who claimed to have betrayed the Empress concubine. Thus, with the emperor in a coma and the Empress concubine dead, there was no leader. After he and the third princess took care of these matters, they naturally took the position. Later, he and the third princess formed an engagement. Regarding this matter, the world had always had different opinions. Some felt that he was doing this to stabilize the imperial court, while others felt that he was fighting for power. In the process, it was inevitable that he would offend many people. It was actually quite normal for someone to assassinate him now. However, on the same day, another important piece of news came from the palace. In the Imperial court, the third princess discussed with all the officials and decided to marry Jiang Yuqing on the 6th of June. Calculating the time, it was about 3 months later. It was like a clap of thunder. Everyone knew that the day of the wedding was the day when third Princess Shenghuan ascended the throne. Chu Estate. In the room, Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged, holding his breath and concentrating. The origin power of heaven and earth and the surroundings flowed into her body endlessly, passing through her limbs and bones before finally converging into the water droplet in her dantian. The 4 lines were bright and clear on the surface of the water droplet. Chu Luiyue faintly felt as if he had touched an invisible barrier. She knew very well that it was the threshold of a rank 5 warrior. After the battle at the Square Stream sect meeting, the power in her body had become much more solid. Thinking about it, it was time to choose to break through now. Chu Luiyue placed both hands on her knees and sped up the flow of origin power in her body. Above her head, an energy vortex quickly appeared. Waves of origin power quickly flowed in. The aura and pressure around her also began to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye. Outside the door, Rongxiu walked along the corridor. Before he reached, he seemed to have sensed something and looked at the room. A faint ripple could be felt coming from it. His eyes moved slightly, and he stood still on the spot. With a wave of his sleeve, a silver barrier quickly enveloped the entire room. "Master!" When Yan Qing arrived, he had just shouted when he saw his master standing in the corridor with his hands behind his back, as if waiting for something. He immediately shut up tactfully and looked at the room where Chu Luiyue was. When he saw the silver barrier, he thought for a moment and understood. Master is protecting Miss Lu Yu. Could it be that Miss Lu Yu is going to break through again? Yan Qing sighed in his heart. Miss Lu Yu's breakthrough speed was too fast. In less than a year, she went from a good-for-nothing to the peak of rank 4 and was about to break through to rank 5. Even if it was a cultivator with the same Daijin Yuan Meridian talent, it would be very difficult to achieve this step. Moreover, she was a triple cultivator. Apart from martial artist cultivation, the ranks of Xian Master and Celestial Physician were also constantly increasing. Even if she was placed in their place, she would not lose to others. Sensing Yan Qing's arrival, Rongxiu turned his head and looked over. What's the matter? Yan Qing stepped forward and bowed. Master, 36 revered Elder Ming is back. He's waiting in the front hall. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows. So fast. At that time, 36 revered Elder Ming had come to Xiling with him. However, after arriving, he asked 36 revered Elder Ming to help investigate a matter. 36 revered Elder Ming was unwilling at first. He wanted to see Chu Luiyue before leaving. In the end, he was persuaded by Rongxiu. According to Rongxiu's previous estimation, 36 revered Elder Ming would only return in half a month. He didn't expect it to be so fast. He turned around and glanced at the silver barrier, but he didn't move. Yan Qing hesitated for a moment and asked, Master, aren't you going now? Rongxiu was calm. Wait a little longer. Wait for what? Of course, he was waiting for Chu Luiyue to break through. Yan Qing was very puzzled. It was naturally a good thing that Miss Lu Yu had broken through to rank 5. However, why did Master still want to guard her personally? At this level, there shouldn't be any problems. It should be over soon. However, he didn't dare to say this out loud. He could only say, then I'll go back and report to 36 revered elders first. Rongxiu nodded. However, just as Yan Qing turned around and was about to leave, he saw a figure walking over from not far away. It was 36 revered Elder Ming. His footsteps seemed slow, but in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of him silently. Yan Qing immediately bowed, but 36 revered Elder Ming waved his hand. No need, no need. I'm here to see the little princess consort. As he spoke, he looked curiously at Chu Liuyue's room and asked in surprise. Is she going to break through? Rong Xiu, didn't you say that she's still a rank 4 warrior? Why are you guarding her now? For convenience, he disguised himself as an elder of Mingyue Tianshan this time. Therefore, he no longer addressed Rong Xiu as Your Highness and called him by his name. Rong Xiu seemed to have expected that he couldn't wait to come, and a smile appeared on his face. Naturally, it's because I need it. Boss. A wave suddenly spread out from the room. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 669. The silver barrier was hit, and it rippled slightly. 36 respected Elder Ming was a little surprised. Is she about to break through to become a rank 5 martial artist? Rong Xiu nodded. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at the surging heaven and earth force and was even more surprised. This movement doesn't seem like it. Rank 5 martial artist. When a cultivator broke through this threshold, it wouldn't cause too much of a commotion. Not to mention them, even the normal cultivators in Xiling City wouldn't pay much attention to it and were all used to it. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. If her breakthrough was really the same as normal people, why would he do this? 36 respected Elder Ming's heart skipped a beat when he saw Rong Xiu's expression. Boss. Another movement came. This time, it was even more obvious than the previous one. The heaven and earth force started to surge in at an even faster speed. 36 respected Elder Ming watched for a while and became interested. It seemed like this girl was unusual. He also wanted to see how capable the woman, who could make Rong Xiu so worried about her, was. In the room, Chu Liuyue's shoulders drooped slightly. She placed her hands on her knees with her palms facing up. The energy vortex above her head became bigger and bigger, and its spinning speed became faster and faster. Vaguely, Chu Liuyue could even hear the sound of surging tides. That was the sound of abundant heaven and earth force surging into her body. Waves of vigorous heaven and earth force swam in her body and kept washing her Yuan meridian before finally pouring into the water droplet. However, even with so much heaven and earth force surging in, the water droplet didn't move for a long time. The invisible barrier was within reach, but when Chu Liuyue tried to break through, she realized that the energy required to take this step was much greater than expected. Whoosh, whoosh, heaven and earth force surged inside and outside her body, and even her eardrums seemed to be gurgling. Suddenly, a cluster of bright red flames emerged from her left palm. That flame danced excitedly like a spirit and then started to attract even more heaven and earth force toward her. Chu Liuyue's body was like a bottomless pit, crazily devouring the energy of heaven and earth. The scarlet flames refined the energy, and the origin power carried a scorching aura as it poured into his dantian. Half of Chu Liuyue's body began to heat up. Shortly after, a strand of origin power floated out from the water droplet. Like smoke, it slowly spread to her internal organs. Chu Liuyue's eyebrows twitched slightly. Qi! A colorless flame quickly appeared on his right hand. It was the karmic fire in the heavenly square cauldron. At this moment it was burning quietly and had also begun to compete for the origin power of heaven and earth. He quickly refined it and poured it into Chu Liuyue's body. Unlike the origin power that had been tempered by the scarlet flames earlier, the origin power that surged out of the transparent karmic fire actually carried a trace of coldness. Like a stream of icy cold snow, it gradually spread, causing the other half of her body to become cold. However, this cold qi was very different from the cold qi inside Chang Wanzhou's body. Because this kind of cold qi was extremely pure and unadulterated. Very quickly, a strand of origin power with coldness also surged out of the water droplet and similarly spread to her internal organs. Chu Liuyue sat there quietly, but there were two extremely different types of energy mixing together in her body. Ice and fire had always been on opposite sides, but Chu Liuyue's body was like a huge and incomparably magical container that fused all of these together. Half of her body was burning. Half of her body was icy cold. Within Chu Liuyue's body, the two types of burning and chilling feelings were constantly intertwined. And during this process, the origin power consumed by the devouring was extremely terrifying. Outside the door, 36 respected Elder Ming and Yan Qing looked at the energy vortex in the courtyard with a shocked expression. That was formed because Chu Liyue had absorbed too much of the origin power of heaven and earth. Until now, the energy that Chu Liyue had absorbed was already sufficient for two peak rank 4 to break through to rank 5. However, she had no intention of stopping. Buzz. 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 Ripples of energy spread out. The silver enchantment that Rongxiu had set up was constantly rippling. If it wasn't for his enchantment, the courtyard would have been swept away by the energy contained in the ripples. 36 respected Elder Ming glanced at Rongxiu faintly. You guessed it long ago. Rongxiu smiled but didn't say a word. The commotion caused by this girl breaking through to a rank 5 warrior is really not small. If this continues, she will almost be comparable to a rank 6 warrior. There were a total of 9 ranks for a cultivator, and rank 3 was a threshold. For a cultivator to break through the barrier of rank 3, 6, and 9 was extremely important to their entire cultivation career. Chu Liyue, this, boom. A roar suddenly came from the room. 36 respected Elder Ming immediately looked over and widened his eyes in shock. She is going to connect the 5 internal organs. The 5 internal organs referred to the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. The so-called connecting the 5 internal organs meant that after a cultivator reached a certain level, they could use the Dantian as the center to connect the 5 internal organs and use the origin power of heaven and earth to connect them to the Dantian. In this way, the 5 internal organs that were connected to the Dantian were equivalent to a pill of origin in another sense. The more the 5 internal organs were connected, the faster the cultivator's cultivation speed would increase. But in fact, connecting the 5 internal organs had extremely high requirements for the cultivator. Ordinary cultivators would only attempt this when they were breaking through to a rank 6 warrior. They might not succeed. According to the difference in talent and physique, the number of the 5 internal organs was also different. Some could connect a few at once, while some could only connect one. Many cultivators didn't connect all the internal organs even after becoming a rank 7 warrior. But Chu Liyue was just about to break through to a rank 5 warrior, so how could she connect the 5 internal organs? Digression, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 670. Generally speaking, the better one's talent, the earlier one could unlock the 5 treasures, and the higher the chance of success on the first try. But other than Rongxiu, 36 respected Elder Ming had never seen anyone try this when they broke through to become a stage 5 warrior. This could only prove that Chu Liyue's ability far exceeded her realm. Rongxiu looked back and looked at the room that was constantly emitting waves. His gaze was deep. Actually, he didn't expect it at first, but when he brought her back yesterday, he was surprised to find the vigorous force in her body. Once she started to break through, it was very likely to cause a huge commotion. The result was indeed so. 36 respected Elder Ming was shocked and didn't say anything for a while. And that silver barrier was shaking even more violently. Chu Liyue had actually expected this scene before she broke through. But when she sensed that the two forces of ice and fire were starting to spread toward her internal organs, she was still shocked. In her previous life, she had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, and indeed, she had already started to unlock the 5 treasures when she broke through to rank 5. But now, her body had the Daijing Yuan Meridian, and logically speaking, she should be like other cultivators, starting from the time of rank 6. A thought flashed across Chu Liuyue's mind quickly, perhaps this was related to the water droplet in her body. But this thought only flashed past her mind. She was only stunned for a moment before she quickly gathered her focus and continued to devour the heaven and earth force around her. Chu Liyue closed her eyes and looked inside. In her dantian, the water droplet was spinning slowly. Streams of origin power gushed out from within and spread to his internal organs in an attempt to connect with them. The surroundings were like endless darkness, and she didn't know when she would be able to find the exit. But Chu Liyue was extremely patient, and she tried bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, a starlight suddenly appeared in the water droplet. Almost at the same time, a subtle feeling of connection was produced. Her heart was unlocked. Thump thump. Thump thump. Her heart was beating vigorously, and even the starlight in the water droplet started to shine. The speed of the force circulation in Chu Liyue's body instantly increased by 2 times. The flames in her hands burned even more fiercely. TSK, she actually did it. Sensing that unusual fluctuation, 36 respected Elder Ming finally could not hold back and spoke out. As a revered elder, he was unquestionably a top-notch cultivator. He had seen tens of thousands of cultivation geniuses. On the surface, 36 respected old Ming was all smiles, but in reality, he was an extremely picky person. It was easy to imagine how high the standards of such a person were. At this moment, even he couldn't help but glance at Rongxiu. No wonder. Brat, your eyesight is quite sharp. Didn't Chu Liyue come from an ordinary family? Didn't they say that she was a good-for-nothing when it came to cultivation? What was going on now? As far as he knew, Rongxiu had been eyeing the girl ever since she started cultivating. Back then, he had thought that since it was rare for Rongxiu to fall in love with a girl, even if her background and talent were slightly inferior, it wouldn't matter. Who would have thought that after all this time, this brat had brought along a true genius? To think that he had thought so much before. It was simply a waste of emotions. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows, and his lips curled into a smile. Thank you for the compliment. Between his brows, there was a proud look that was not concealed at all. 36 respected Elder Ming, how shameless. Boom. A series of explosions could be heard. She's still continuing. 36 respected Elder Ming was shocked and hurriedly looked over. Could it be that she can still open the second treasury? In the room, Chu Liyue's eyes were tightly shut. After the first success, the subsequent process became much simpler. Very quickly, the second starlight appeared in the water droplet. This time, it was the liver. After opening 2 treasures in succession, the force in Chu Liyue's body was still surging crazily, and there was no sign of it stopping. Chu Liyue made up her mind and decided to directly open all 5 treasures in one go. Her entire person seemed to have entered some kind of wonderful state, and she completely forgot about the flow of time in the outside world. She only continued to absorb the energy from the outside world, and then converted it into her own force. Again and again, she tried to continue opening the remaining 5 treasures. The water droplet rotated slowly, and the force that surged out also increased. Finally, there was a soft sound. Spleen. The third starlight flashed slowly. 36 respected Elder Ming's expression gradually became serious. Such talent was really hard to come by. Generally speaking, it was actually very difficult for a cultivator who tried to open the 5 treasures for the first time to succeed. There were really very few who could open all 3 treasures in one go. And this, to a certain extent, also foretold the cultivator's potential. If Chu Liyue could still continue, boom. As if to confirm his thoughts, there was another boom in the room. A wave that contained powerful energy spread out in all directions. The barrier shook even more violently. This was already the 4th treasury. 36 respected Elder Ming, who originally didn't care about this matter, already had his entire heart in his mouth at this moment. Even Yan Qing's face, which had always been as cold as ice, was now filled with deep shock. Only Rong Xiao had one hand behind his back, and his posture was calm and lazy. It was as if he had already predicted the result. After opening all 4 treasures, 4 starlights shone brightly in the water droplet in her dantian. At this moment, Chu Liuyue's speed of absorbing the force had already reached 4 times the initial speed. Fortunately, her yuan meridian was wide and tough enough. Otherwise, it would really be hard for her to withstand such a turbulent force. Waves of force washed through her body. Chu Liyue could clearly feel that the aura on her body was continuously strengthening. Although her eyes were closed, her 5 senses were obviously much sharper than before. Chu Liyue held her breath, and a flash of passion flashed across her heart. If she could open the last treasury, it would be extremely beneficial to her cultivation in the future. So, no matter what, she must succeed. The last treasury was undoubtedly the most crucial and also the most difficult checkpoint. Among 1,000 rank 6 martial artists, there might not even be one who could open all 5 treasures. The difficulty was imaginable. Chu Liyue tried again and again. If the first time didn't work, the second time. If the second time didn't work, the third time. After an unknown period of time, there was still no movement from the 5th treasury. The force in Chu Liyue's body was constantly depleting. But she still didn't stop, and she still tried her best every time. She was incomparably stubborn and tenacious. It's been so long, the 5th treasury shouldn't be able to open anymore. Looking at the sky, 36 respected elder Ming muttered to himself. Actually, it's already very outstanding to be able to open the 4th treasury on the first try. It's fine if you really can't open the 5th treasury. Rong Xiao didn't move at all, as if he was still waiting. After a while, his eyes moved slightly. Boom! Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 671. The last treasure was successfully unlocked. The 5th star finally appeared in the water droplet. Almost at the same time, Chu Liyue heard the sound of something shattering. Bang! That was the barrier of a rank 5 warrior finally breaking. As though the floodgates had been opened, a flood poured down. The wind howled and countless waves were swept up. Chu Liyue retracted her hands and the 2 balls of flames quickly returned to her body. A powerful aura spread out from Chu Liyue's body. The 5th pattern gradually appeared on the water droplet. Buzz! Chu Liyue suddenly opened her eyes. There seemed to be 2 balls of flames burning in her eyes. It was extremely bright and brilliant. A true rank 5 warrior. She stretched out her hand and drew a line of origin power. 5 stars were faintly discernible in her palm. Even that force was wrapped in an unusually powerful aura. This level of strength was more than a few times stronger than before. This was the strength of a rank 5 warrior who had unlocked all 5 treasures. Even someone as calm and collected as Chu Liyue couldn't help but feel agitated at this moment. She had never thought that not only could she be reborn as a human, but she could also cultivate to such a level again. Although there was no way to be compared to her previous self, Chu Liyue could clearly feel that as her strength increased, she was indeed getting closer to her previous self step by step. There would be a day when she would return to her peak. She would take back everything that belonged to her. When the fluctuations around her gradually dissipated, Chu Liyue took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She stood up and walked outside. The door opened and a few gazes looked over. Chu Liyue followed the gaze and looked over. The first to see was Rong Xiao. Standing behind him was Yan Qing. Beside him was a green-robed old man with white hair who was looking at her with a smile. Chu Liyue was puzzled. Rong Xiao waved his sleeves and the silver barrier disappeared silently. Only then did Chu Luiyue realize that he seemed to have set up a barrier outside the room. Is he protecting me? Well, she had caused quite a commotion just now and it would be troublesome if she attracted someone. She had been in the limelight in West Hill recently and there were many pairs of eyes looking at her. Although she wasn't afraid, she knew that it was easier to dodge an open spear than an arrow in the dark. It was always better to be careful. Moreover, she had unlocked all 5 treasures as a rank 5 warrior. If this news were to spread, it would probably cause a bloodbath. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on her face. Just as she was about to walk forward, she saw that the old man had already taken a step forward. Little Wang. Little Lu Yu, right? Although the old man's face was full of wrinkles, his eyes were very clear and he looked hale and hearty. When he walked over, it seemed like he hadn't moved at all, but in the next moment, he was already right before Zhang Xian. Moreover, there was not the slightest bit of power. Chu Liuyue's heart tingled. This old man's strength was probably far beyond her expectations. At this moment, he was looking at Chu Luiyue with a smile and a curious and eager face. Chu Luiyue glanced at Rong Xiao and saw that he was smiling. It was obvious that he had a good relationship with this old man, so she smiled obediently and bowed. Lu Yu Greet Sr. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at the little girl in front of him happily. Her face was porcelain white and her eyes were clean. There was a hint of nobility in her eyes. She was really likable. Not bad, not bad. Rong Xiao's taste was indeed good. He liked her the moment he saw her. You don't have to be so polite. This old man's title in Mingyue Tianshan is 36 Ming. You can call me 36 respected elder. So he was an elder from Mingyue Tianshan. Chu Luiyue understood and immediately responded obediently. 36 respected elder came to West Hill this time because he has something important to do. He also came here to take a look. Rong Xiao walked over and explained. Chu Luiyue nodded and said apologetically, 36 respected elder came from afar. 36th elder, you've come from afar. Please forgive me for not being able to receive you properly. No, no. This old man knows that you were cultivating just now. This old man has always been free to come and go. I don't care about these formalities. Besides, Rong Xiao is here. It's more important for you to break through. As he spoke, a trace of admiration appeared in his eyes. Little Lu Yu, your talent is really outstanding. It seemed like he already knew about what had happened just now. Chu Liuyue's mind raced. It was hard not to know that an expert of this level was standing here. Moreover, Rong Xiao seemed to have a good relationship with this old man and should be very trusting. In that case, she had nothing to hide. Thank you for your praise, 36 respected elder. Actually, Lu Yu was just a little lucky, 36 respected elder Ming chuckled. There are people in this world who can't do this even if they use up their lifetime of luck. Little Lu Yu, you don't have to be humble. It's Rong Xiao's fortune to be able to find you. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. It seems like someone has suddenly changed sides. Chu Liuyue's face turned slightly hot. This was the first time she had heard such words from an outsider. It felt really strange. 36 respected elder Ming no longer had Rong Xiao in his eyes. He only had Chu Luiyue left. He had never married in his life and had no children. In the past, he had always treated Rong Xiao as his close relative. Not only did he teach him everything, but he also often gave advice to Rong Xiao. It could be said that without him, there wouldn't be Rong Xiao who sat firmly on the position of Holy Son today. But there was one thing, he had great expectations for Rong Xiao and was relatively strict. But when he saw Chu Luiyue, his heart instantly melted. Such a cute and beautiful little girl, isn't she meant to be pampered? Little Lu Yu, you're now a rank 5 warrior and have opened your 5 treasures. It's time for you to build a good cultivation foundation and stabilize your advancement. I happen to have some Earth stage martial skills, why don't you pick them? With that, 36 respected Elder Ming shook his hand. Crash, many jade boxes instantly fell out of the universe ring. Those jade boxes were all lustrous and translucent with a faint aura. It was obvious that the items inside were not ordinary. He coughed. Old man, things are a bit messy. You can put up with it and pick whatever you like. If you don't like it, I still have more. Chu Liuyue's eyes were dazed for a moment. What does this mean? There's actually someone in this world who casually gives an Earth stage martial skill on their first meeting. However, seeing Chu Liuyue's expression, 36 respected Elder Ming misunderstood and thought that she didn't like them. He pondered for a moment, pulled Chu Liuyue's wrist and walked to the side. He lowered his voice and whispered, Little Lu Yu, if you don't like these, then I actually have better things. However, those are all the sect's inheritances. I'm afraid I can only give them to you after you and Rong Xiu get married. Chu Liuyue's brows twitched violently. Does he mean, marry Rong Xiu and give her a heaven stage martial skill? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 672. Rong Xiu, who felt as if he had been sold, was speechless. Facing the extremely enthusiastic 36 respected Elder Ming, Chu Liyue was unable to withstand it. She coughed and said, Thank you, 36th Elder Ming. I appreciate your kind intentions, but this gift is really too precious, choose one. Choose one. 36 revered Elder Ming urged. How can this little thing be considered valuable? I'll give you something better in the future. Chu Liyue was speechless. Little thing, was he talking about these Earth rank martial skills? Were all the top-notch experts now so generous? Chu Liyue still wanted to decline, but Rong Xiu had already walked forward. His gaze swept across the boxes, and he picked one and handed it to Chu Liyue. This is 36 Elder Ming's kind intentions. Just accept it. Otherwise, according to his character, he might really pester Chu Liyue for half a month because of this matter. Chu Liyue hesitated for a moment, and could only accept the jade box. Thank you 36 Elder Ming. 36 respected Elder Ming's eyes lit up when he saw the box. He looked at Rong Xiu and chuckled. You sure know how to pick. This old man wants to give something to little Lu Yu, and you didn't forget to interfere. Chu Liyue looked at the two of them in confusion. Rong Xiu smiled faintly. It's just in passing. As he spoke, he also took out another identical box from his universe ring and handed it to Chu Liyue. 36 Elder Ming gave you the first volume, and this is the second volume. Chu Liyue was somewhat puzzled. Why was there a need to divide a martial skill into 2 volumes? Suddenly, she widened her eyes slightly. Wait a minute, if the first volume was an Earth rank martial skill, then wouldn't the second volume be a Heaven rank martial skill? Rong Xiu, this second volume, Rong Xiu seemed to have seen through her guess, and his lips curled up slightly. You are this prince's fiancé. 36 revered Elder Ming is temporarily unable to give you this item, but this prince can. As expected. Chu Liyue immediately confirmed his guess. With the first and second volumes added together, it was definitely a Heaven tier martial skill. And what did Rong Xiu just say? Just in passing. 36 revered Elder Ming said sourly, TSK. You only know how to bully me. When you get married, this old man will give you whatever I want. How could it be your turn? Chu Liyue was speechless. Is this something to be proud of? The vast majority of cultivators in this world might not even be able to see a heaven-ranked martial skill in their entire lives, but they had actually given it away so casually, and she had just broken through to become a rank 5 warrior, yet she had received such a precious gift out of the blue. Chu Luiyue looked at Rong Xiu meaningfully. She was now extremely sure that the Honorable Prince Li, oh no, His Highness Saint was indeed from a wealthy family. Hugging 2 heavy boxes in her arms, Chu Luiyue silently thought to herself, so this is the feeling of hugging someone's thigh. Awesome! Oh! That's right. I heard from Rong Xiu that you, little Lu Yu, are also a Xian master and celestial physician. Although this old man doesn't cultivate these two, I have collected quite a number of things. As 36 revered Elder Ming spoke, he poured out another pile of things and started picking. Oh. This is a level 8 Xian formation, this is for you. And this too, this is for you too. This seems to be a prescription book. Back then, this old man picked it up from a 9. Celestial physician, take it. Chu Luiyue, who was still pretending to be calm at the beginning, finally felt her eyelids twitch violently. Isn't this too extravagant? 36 revered Elder Ming, these things of yours are really too valuable. However, Rong Xiu had already taken those things and placed them in her arms, not allowing her to reject. 36 revered Elder does indeed have quite a number of things that are idle. It's a waste to leave them with him. You're just making the best use of them by accepting them. Just take them, Rong Xiu said casually. As he spoke, he glanced at those things a few times, as if he was picking something. 36 revered Elder Ming, I remember that you have a yuan instrument that can teleport. Oh. Yes, yes. That's good too. 36 revered Elder Ming searched again. After a while, he took out a palm-sized bronze disc and stuffed it into Chu Luiyue's hands. Little Lu Yu, you've just reached the standard of flying. This is the most suitable thing for you to use. Chu Luiyue was dumbfounded. At the beginning, she tried to dissuade them, but after realizing that she couldn't stop these two people at all, she decisively gave up. How should she put it? This feeling of being thrown money at, it still felt good. 36 respected Elder Ming only stopped when Chu Luiyue's entire body was about to be buried by these gifts after half a day of digging. He sized up Chu Luiyue and shook his head regretfully. Sigh, I'm still lacking. Rong Xiu, you have to hurry up and get married. Otherwise, I can't give you a lot of things. Only when Chu Luiyue became Rong Xiu's princess consort and reached this level of relationship could he continue. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly. I'll try my best. Chu Luiyue was speechless. What does this mean? Why does it feel like something isn't right? After Rong Xiu finished speaking, he glanced at her and smiled. Keep these first. There's something that you probably don't know yet. Let's go inside and talk. Faced with such a forceful gift, Chu Luiyue felt weak, pitiful, and helpless. She could only obediently put everything into her universe ring. Although the universe ring wasn't heavy, for some reason, Chu Luiyue felt that if she shook it, she would hear countless money rustling. Come to think of it, although I didn't have anything when I was reborn, my luck seems to be ridiculously good. After packing up, the few of them finally entered the house. Chu Luiyue personally brewed tea and received another round of praise from 36 revered Elder Ming. Little Lu Yu, the tea you brewed is really good. Chu Luiyue asked curiously. Do you like Jin Junmei? 36 revered Elder Ming was stunned for a moment before he immediately nodded. Rong Xiu sat at the side and watched this scene with a faint smile. Who didn't know that 36 revered Elder Ming only drank the ice and snow water that he carried with him? Especially at his level, he didn't care about these things. Although his acting skills were clumsy, he was sincere. Chu Luiyue could roughly tell what was going on, and she found it funny and warm. She could tell that he really liked her and valued her. All of this was because he cared about Rongxiu. Although she had never heard Rongxiu mention it before, this old man was extremely important to Rongxiu. There's a piece of news from the palace today. Rongxiu took a sip of tea, and the fragrance instantly spread between his lips and teeth. The wedding between the third princess and young Master Jiang is set for the 6th of June. Chu Luiyue was stunned. This is, Shang Wanwan finally can't hold it in anymore. Is she going to ascend the throne? While she was in a daze, she realized that Rongxiu was looking at her with a deep gaze. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. He seems to care a lot about my reaction. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 673. Actually, this matter was within her expectations. She was even a little surprised that the two of them had only decided on a date now. After all, the two of them had seemed so affectionate on the night of her death. She had thought that after her death, the two of them would be in power and could find a random reason to quickly get married. The two of them were irreconcilable enemies to her. Apart from that, sisters, fiancé and fiancé, those had long disappeared. Therefore, when she heard this news, she was not surprised at all. She even wanted to laugh. Two people whose bodies were severely injured, getting married at this time was simply asking for a snub. 6th of June, calculating the time, there were only about 3 months left. Actually, this was not a long time. Apart from the wedding, there would definitely be a coronation ceremony. There were many things that would take a lot of time and energy to prepare. She just did not know why the two of them chose this time. Besides, even if they really got married, not to mention Jiang Yuqing, Sheng Wanwan. How could a piece of trash with a damaged Yuan meridian pick up the Tianling scepter? It was fine if she used special methods on normal days, but on the day of the wedding, if she could not pick up the Tianling scepter in front of all the officials, the scene would definitely be beautiful. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue was actually a little excited. TSK. Her bad habit of being a busybody was getting worse. Seeing Chu Luiyue's expression change and a sly smile in the end, Rongxiu's eyes flashed and his smile deepened. He leaned back in his chair lazily. It seemed that some of his worries were indeed unnecessary. Pretty good. Chu Luiyue smiled. The emperor of the Tianling dynasty has been in a coma for 2 years and has been without a leader. Now, it is time to solve this problem. However, whether it can really be solved is another matter. Since Sheng Wanwan dared to do this, she must be prepared. As expected, she heard Rongxiu continue. Also, there is one more thing. The third princess said that the emperor had been in a coma for a long time, and they needed to find several special herbs and the blood of divine beasts to wake him up. For this reason, she planned to personally head to the Great Desolate Swamp. Chu Luiyue was really surprised this time. Great Desolate Swamp. That place was at the western border of the Tianling dynasty. It was extremely remote and the environment was harsh. Why would Sheng Wanwan want to go there in person? Back then, Mu Qinghe had joined the Black Cavalry and fought for many years in the Great Desolate Swamp. In the end, she had quelled the rebellion with great difficulty, which was why she had her current status. It was easy to imagine the dangers involved. Chu Luiyue had been to the Great Desolate Swamp in his previous life. Although it wasn't as mysterious and dangerous as the southern border, the Great Desolate Swamp was still a dangerous place compared to other places. Mystic Forest, Mirror Lake, Red Moon Desert, back then, even she had been in danger several times. In Sheng Wanwan's current situation, she still dared to take such a risk. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. She brought the elders of the royal family with her. There's also 1,000 Black Cavalry. If the rumors aren't wrong, Mu Qinghe will be leading the team. Rong Xiao touched the teacup with a calm expression. In addition, she also plans to send 10 people from each of the 8 sects in the sect competition. She said, to provide opportunities for training. I heard that she will be selecting people from today onwards. We will set off 3 days later. Chu Luiyue almost laughed out loud. Provide opportunities for training. Sheng Wanwan could actually say such things. How dangerous was the Great Desolate Swamp? More or less, there was no return. It was understandable that she brought the elders of the royal family and the Black Cavalry, but she still wanted to select people from the 4 major sects. She obviously had other motives. This is the royal family's matter. Did she say that the 4 major sects agreed so easily? This wasn't what she said. It was Purple Shao Sword Sect Master, Song Wan, who suggested it. It seems that some outstanding descendants of aristocratic families can go together if they want to. Now, the news has spread throughout the entire West Hill. How preposterous. Ridiculous. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why are they so passionate about the Great Desolate Swamp? Isn't that place very dangerous? It's dangerous, but there might be countless treasures hidden there. People die for wealth, and birds die for food. It has been like this since ancient times. Rong Xiao said lightly as if he didn't care. Chu Luiyue was speechless for a moment. All along, the Great Desolate Swamp had always been mysterious and dangerous in the eyes of the world, but it was also full of temptation. Because thousands of years ago, a shocking battle had once erupted there. It was rumored that in that battle, countless strong people killed each other, and they all fell in the end. The various treasures and inheritances that they left behind had undoubtedly become things that everyone yearned for even in their dreams. Therefore, for many years, there had always been an endless stream of people entering the Great Desolate Swamp. Back then, it was also because someone found an incredible item in the Great Desolate Swamp and gathered a group of extremely vicious people who wanted to start anew in the Great Desolate Swamp. In the end, they were forcefully suppressed. That group of people who rebelled had all disappeared, but it was precisely because of them that countless people realized how powerful the countless treasures hidden in the Great Desolate Swamp were. Therefore, from then on, even more people went there. In addition, there was an even more important point: divine beasts. There hadn't been a divine beast in the Tianling dynasty for hundreds of years. Even the former Sheng Wanyu had only contracted a 9th-grade magical beast, not a divine beast. No one knew when it started, but there was suddenly a rumor that a divine beast appeared in the Great Desolate Swamp. In this world where the strong were respected, all these factors had a fatal attraction to all cultivators. Therefore, after Sheng Wanwan mentioned this matter, many people immediately expressed their desire to go with her. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. That's true. Rong Xiao looked at her. Then, do you plan to go? Chu Luiyue was a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion, so she naturally had a chance. Moreover, she had just won 3 matches, turned the tide, and preserved the Chongshu Pavilion's position as one of the 4 major sections. She would definitely be the focus of attention. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. Go. Why not? It wasn't like she hadn't been there before. Moreover, she also wanted to see what tricks Sheng Wanwan had up her sleeves. Suddenly, she frowned slightly. But, if I go, what about you? Rong Xiao smiled faintly. I'm leaving tomorrow, 1 step earlier than you. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised, and a sense of loss suddenly surged in her heart. So soon. I've been resting here for a long time, and it's time to go. Chu Luiyue realized that Rong Xiao had indeed stayed in West Hill for more than a month. It was just that she had been busy with many things, and the two of them didn't have much chance to be alone. Chu Luiyue fell silent for a moment. Rong Xiao glanced at Yan Qing indifferently. Yan Qing immediately understood what he meant. Master, I suddenly remembered that there are still some things I haven't done, so I'll take my leave first. Rong Xiao nodded slightly. Yan Qing slipped away. Rong Xiao looked at 36 respected Elder Ming again. However, 36 respected Elder Ming was looking at Chu Luiyue, and he asked with a worried and eager expression. That little Luyu, the place you mentioned is so dangerous. Do you want me to go with you? Digression, at about 12:30 p.m., mobile phone users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 674. Rong Xiao, 36 respected Elder Ming, you seem to have said something wrong. This is your first time meeting you, Is it appropriate for you to speak like this? As if Rong Xiao's gaze was too cold and resentful, the slow-witted 36 respected Elder Ming finally realized something and quickly turned his head to look at him. Hey, look, Rong Xiao is also very worried. I feel more at ease accompanying you. Rong Xiao, he suddenly rejoiced that he didn't let 36 respected Elder Ming meet Chu Luiyue in the past month. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had a good time during this period of time. Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. 36 respected Elder Ming, I'm afraid this won't work. Sheng Wanwan had caused quite a commotion this time, and it was obvious that she was very strict in selecting people. Each of the 8 sects would send out 10 people. Those who didn't know the inside story would probably think that this was an excellent opportunity and would fight until their heads bled. With such strict control over these sects, people like 36 respected Elder Ming would definitely not be allowed to go together. Hearing this, 36 respected Elder Ming's face was filled with disappointment. He originally wanted to follow and protect little Lu Yu, but don't worry, I will be very careful and pay attention to safety. Chu Luiyue said again. Sigh, all right. 36 respected Elder Ming let out a long sigh and began to take things out from his universe ring. If that's the case, then I can't help you with anything else. I can only give you some things to protect yourself. Here, this, and this. Ah, and this. Take them all. As he spoke, he handed over another pile of things. Chu Luiyue, it was really hard to guess how many treasures there were in the big boss's universe ring. I mustn't disappoint 36 respected Elder Ming's kind intentions. Rong Xiao raised his finger and moved all those things to Chu Luiyue's feet. Then, he took out another pile and similarly piled them in front of Chu Luiyue. I'm giving these to you. Chu Luiyue. Why did he inexplicably smell a faint murderous aura? Chu Luiyue felt really embarrassed and tried to stop him again and again. Hence, he successfully kept all these things into his universe ring. The 3 of them were happy. Chu Luiyue was busy receiving gifts, but he didn't know that Xiling City was already in an uproar because of these 2 matters. The 3rd princess and young Master Zhang's wedding. To His Majesty, to His Majesties, His Majesties, to the disciples of the major sects were all extremely excited. That was the great desolate swamp. Although it was, there were countless treasures. If he could find some kind of treasure, or even, obtain the inheritance of a certain expert, that would be a great opportunity. All the cultivators in the world wished to become stronger. Therefore, even if they knew that the great desolate swamp was dangerous, it still couldn't stop them from wanting to go. For this reason, the major sects had already begun to consider candidates. Mountain. I'm not going. Jian Fengqi crossed his legs and waved his bone fan. He looked lazy and indifferent. That's a barren land. Whoever wants to go can go. Jian Shai looked at him disapprovingly. What barren land? That's a place where divine beasts have appeared. Let's not talk about whether the rumor is true or not. Even if it's true, do you think I'll have a chance to get that divine beast? Jian Fengqi sneered. If only divine beasts were so easy to tame. Jian Shai also knew that what he said made sense, so he didn't argue with him. Even if you can't find a divine beast, it's good to go and experience it. You grew up in Shilling and almost never went outside. Now that this is a rare opportunity, you can go out and see. Moreover, the third princess is going to look for herbs for His Majesty. You're not interested in divine beasts, but there should be herbs, right? Jian Fengqi glanced at his father. Father, I'm fine in Shilling. Why do you insist on me going out? Even if I didn't experience those things. Aren't I still fine now? I'm a celestial physician, and you're also a celestial physician. Why are you still forcing me to fight with a group of martial artists and Xian masters? Jian Shai really didn't know what to do with this son of his. He only cared about himself all day long and wanted the best for everything. He wasn't willing to suffer at all. Jian Fengqi glanced at him and continued. Besides, Mu Qinghe used to rise from that place. Is there anyone who knows Dahuang Swamp better than him? It's enough for him to go on this trip. There are so many other people going, but they're just joining in the fun. However, he didn't like it. Sheng Wanwan was there, and he was really afraid that she would ruin his mood. Besides, Sheng Wanwan's words were just used to scare people. Only she knew what she really wanted to do. He might as well stay in Shilling and do what he should do. Seeing that he really couldn't persuade him, Jian Shai could only give up. Master, can I go? Mu Hongyu suddenly asked. Jian Shai was stunned and immediately nodded. Of course. Although there were only 10 places, Mu Hongyu had the incorporeal body. In addition, she had improved rapidly during this period. Of course, she could go if she wanted to. Mu Hongyu's eyes lit up. That's great. Thank you, Master. That place sounds very interesting. And if I'm not wrong, Lu Yu will definitely go too. Jian Fengqi frowned slightly and was about to stop her, but he swallowed his words when he saw Mu Hongyu's excited expression. Jian Shai shook his head at Jian Fengqi. Since you don't want to go, then it's up to you. Many disciples on the mountain want to go. Jian Fengqi was unmoved. He stood up, stretched, and walked out leisurely. When he passed by Mu Hongyu, he knocked Mu Hongyu's head with his bone fan and whispered, "You really don't know the difference between life and death." Mu Hongyu blinked and wrinkled her nose. Who was reckless? Just as she was about to retort, Jian Fengqi had already walked away. Imperial Palace, Huayang Hall. Sheng Wanwan sat there, thinking about something. Chan Yi was packing her things. They would set off for the Dahuang Swamp in 3 days. This time, it would probably take more than a month. Therefore, she had to bring a lot of things. The Dahuang Swamp was a dangerous place. If it was in the past, Sheng Wanwan would still have the courage to go. But now, her body, she felt more or less uneasy. Fortunately, she had brought a lot of people this time. Your Highness, Your Highness. Chan Yi called out to her twice before Sheng Wanwan came back to her senses. What's wrong? Chan Yi looked at her expression and asked hesitantly. Is the third princess worried about something? With Vice Admiral Mu leading the team this time, there shouldn't be a problem. Him. Sheng Wanwan scoffed. He won't listen to me. Although she knew that Mu Qinghe was Jiang Yuqing's subordinate, perhaps because he had been by Sheng Wanyu's side for so many years, she couldn't trust him. If it weren't for the fact that they were going to the Dahuang Swamp and Mu Qinghe was the most suitable, she wouldn't have brought him along. Your Highness, you're worrying too much. Isn't young Master Jiang accompanying us? If you're really worried, why don't you bring that thing along? Sheng Wanwan turned around. What? Chan Yi bowed and whispered, have you forgotten that that person left behind a set of armor? Digression, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 675. Are you talking about the pure gold armor? Sheng Wanwan furrowed her eyebrows. That item is not bad, but it has always been in Zhao Yu Hall. Everyone in the Tianling dynasty knows that it belongs to Sheng Wanyu. If I take it out, that person has already passed away. It's a waste for the holy item to be left in the pavilion. If it can be used by your highness and protect your highness, it will be the best use. Chani didn't seem to mind. She advised, you are already above everyone, and you will be getting married in a few months' time. No one is more suitable than you to be the new owner of this pure gold armor. Sheng Wanwan was moved by her words. The origin of this pure gold saint armor had quite a long history. Back then, when Sheng Wanyu had just become of marriageable age, she had led the Black Cavalry to patrol the territory. Along the way, she had accidentally entered the ruins of an ancient battlefield and obtained the pure gold armor. She had only publicly worn it once, and that was during the final battle in Dahuang Swamp. It was rumored that she had worn the pure gold armor and fought against 3 rank 8 martial artists alone. She had even killed all of them in the end. From then on, the pure gold armor had become famous. Sheng Wanyu was the heavenly princess and had seen many good items. However, this pure gold armor was definitely one of the top 3 yuan tools that she had. It was obvious how powerful it was. Sheng Wanwan had naturally been moved by this item. She had even thought of taking the pure gold armor for herself after dealing with Sheng Wanyu. However, her yuan meridian had been burned and hadn't recovered. Thus, she had thrown this matter to the back of her mind. Now that Chani mentioned it, she suddenly recalled it. What you said makes sense. Sheng Wanwan narrowed her eyes and thought about it. Let's go now. Zhao Yu Hall. This used to be the most honorable place in the entire palace, other than the Universal Palace where the current emperor lived. This was because this used to be the residence of the heavenly princess. The bustling of the past had all disappeared. The current Zhao Yu Hall had become very lonely and cold. Other than the palace guards who were sent to guard the palace, almost no one would come here. Because the empress concubine died from qi deviation during cultivation, it wasn't very pleasant to hear. In addition, the one in power now was the 3rd princess, so people rarely talked about the past. In this palace, it was true that each new emperor brought in his own ministers. In the eyes of the world, the 3rd princess and the empress concubine were extremely close and had a very good relationship. However, the palace servants who had been in the palace for a long time all had a keen mind. They more or less understood the subtleties involved. Therefore, when Sheng Wanwan arrived, the palace servants of Zhao Yu Hall were very shocked. Long live the 3rd princess. Sheng Wanwan waved her hand casually and stepped into the courtyard, heading straight for the sleeping quarters. I'm just looking around. Do whatever you need to do. After everyone agreed in unison, they waited for Sheng Wanwan to enter the bedchamber. Then, they exchanged glances and slowly dispersed. Ever since Her Highness the Empress concubine left, the 3rd princess came a few times. She always came with red eyes and left with red eyes. He didn't come much this year. Today's visit was really inexplicable. But no matter what, they still had to serve her carefully. Sheng Wanwan walked into the bedchamber. This room clearly hadn't been visited by anyone for a long time. The air was filled with a faint smell of dust that had been sealed for a long time. When the sunlight shone in, one could see the dust dancing in the air. Sheng Wanwan frowned and used a handkerchief to cover her mouth and nose. She was angry and amused at the same time. Who would have thought that the once glorious Zhao Yu Hall would fall to such a state one day? If it was a normal day, she would definitely immediately go out and admonish her to show her deep sisterly love. But today, she really wasn't in the mood and couldn't be bothered to do it. She walked to the bedside and gently rubbed the edge of the bed. After touching a protrusion, she pressed with her finger and the sandalwood cabinet diagonally opposite quietly moved aside. A secret compartment appeared in front of her. Sheng Wanwan walked over and knocked on it a few times. Click. The secret compartment opened. A pure golden armor was placed in the middle of it. Even in this dark space, this pure gold armor still emitted a faint glow that couldn't be ignored. From top to bottom, it emitted an indescribable noble and lofty aura. At a glance, one could almost feel the surging blood qi on the armor. This wasn't the first time Sheng Wanwan saw this pure gold armor. But every time she saw it, her heart would be shocked. It was a true sacred object passed down from the ancient times. It was an incomparable existence that could be called a divine artifact. Sheng Wanwan was excited and couldn't help but reach out her hand to touch it slowly. It was cold and hard to the touch, but it emitted a powerful pressure. If she really wore it, what would it look like? Sheng Wanwan took a deep breath and carefully took off the pure gold armor. She held it in her arms and felt it against her face for a while. This was a powerful aura. This armor recognized its owner. Unfortunately, her yuan meridian was damaged and she could only look at it. When her body recovers, all of these would be hers. Sheng Wanwan carefully put the pure gold armor into her universe ring. Then, she restored everything to its original state before leaving. Chan Yi was waiting at the door. As Sheng Wanwan walked out, she said indifferently, Long Tianyu hasn't been cleaned up. Eldest sister's palace hasn't been cleaned for a long time. The palace servants of Zhao Yu Hall have neglected their duties and have all been chased out of the palace. Chan Yi bowed. Yes. Jiang residence. Eldest young master, you can't go with the third princess this time. If this continues, I'm afraid your body will. Feng Shanyuan came to the study again and tried his best to dissuade him. Jiang Yuqing sat in the chair expressionlessly. You don't have to say this anymore. I must go this time. He wasn't going because of anything else, but because he was worried about Sheng Wanwan. Sheng Wanwan wanted to recover her yuan meridian as soon as possible, and he agreed. However, he didn't expect her to do this the moment she made a move. Not only did she bring the royal family's elders and 1,000 black cavalry, but the other sects also sent 10 disciples each. What was going on? Others didn't know, but he knew best. Sheng Wanwan was being too hasty. Feng Shanyuan frowned. But if you and the third princess go to Dahuang Swamp, what will happen to West Hill? Leave it to the subordinates to deal with. Now that most of the problems have been resolved, nothing will happen in a short month. Jiang Yuqing didn't think much of it. For the past 2 years, he had been upholding the principle of those who followed him would prosper and those who opposed him would die. He killed those who should be killed and captured those who should be captured. He had already dealt with those who posed a threat to him. He wasn't worried about what the remaining shrimp soldiers and crab generals would do. But there's still His Majesty. It's precisely because I want to find out the problem that I want to leave West Hill. Jiang Yuqing said meaningfully. Feng Shanyuan didn't say anything else. Do. Eldest young master, Vice Admiral Mu requests an audience. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 676. Jiang Yuqing glanced at Feng Shanyuan, and the latter immediately took his leave. Then, Mu Qinghe walked in. Jiang Yuqing leaned back in his chair. Tell me, what's the matter? Mu Qinghe cupped his fists. Young master, I've been secretly investigating the 100 Herbs building recently, but they're very guarded, so it's difficult to find anything. However, I accidentally learned that Yu Ling is in charge of the 100 Herbs building on the surface, but in fact, there's a first master behind him. That's the real master of the 100 Herbs building. First master. Jiang Yuqing frowned. Who is this person? He only knew that there must be someone behind the 100 Herbs building, but he didn't know who it was. Moreover, because the 100 Herbs building had been doing business quietly in the past and did not involve his interests, he did not seriously send people to investigate. Mu Qinghe shook his head. This person is very mysterious, and there's no clue. But I heard that this first master has a wife, and he loves her very much. But there's nothing else. First master. Wife, these were all hearsay. When he really wanted to investigate, Mu Qinghe found that the other party was more powerful than he had imagined, and everything was done flawlessly. This made him even more helpless. If Chu Luiyue really has a backer in the 100 Herbs building, it's very likely to be this person. Otherwise, there's really no way to explain what happened recently. Chu Luiyue comes from an ordinary family and has never even been to West Hill. How could she know such a person? Jiang Yuqing was a little skeptical. Mu Qinghe lowered his head slightly. It said that the last time Chu Luiyue went to the 100 Herbs building, Yu Ling was very polite to her and even entertained her personally. There are probably less than 5 people in West Hill who have such treatment. Jiang Yuqing's expression changed slightly. In that case, it's possible. Can't you find out anything about the so-called first master? For example, is he from West Hill? Or perhaps its age? Mu Qinghe shook her head, then said with some hesitation, that's right. Eldest young master, we've been secretly investigating them, but we've already been discovered. And, they even gave me a warning. Jiang Yuqing's eyes suddenly turned sharp. What? Mu Qinghe opened her palm. There was a neat bloody wound on it, as if it was going to be cut in half from the middle. The other party's meaning was very clear, don't stretch your hands too far. They fought with you? Jiang Yuqing asked coldly. It's a masked man. His strength is not inferior to mine. In fact, what Mu Qinghe wanted to say was that the other party's strength was most likely higher than his. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy to leave such a wound on his palm. Jiang Yuqing was silent for a long time, as if he was holding a breath in his chest. In these 2 years, he had never seen such an arrogant person. However, he didn't even know who this person was. Whether it was Jiang Yuji or Mu Qinghe, the other party had made it clear that they were unyielding. According to Jiang Yuqing's personality, he would never allow others to bully him. Furthermore, this was West Hill, this was his territory. However, at this time, it was not appropriate to cause more trouble. He stared at the wound on Mu Qinghe's palm, rubbed his brows, and let out a long breath. Forget it, this matter ends here. We'll be going to Dahuang Swamp in a few days. Let's settle these things first. Mu Qinghe had already expected this result and nodded without surprise. Yes. Jiang Yuqing had been troubled by a bunch of trivial matters recently. He couldn't even take care of himself, so how could he care about these things? He could only wait until he returned. If there's nothing else, eldest young master, then I'll take my leave first. Jiang Yuqing waved his hand. Mu Qinghe retreated. However, she had just taken 2 steps when she was stopped by Jiang Yuqing. By the way, that day, were you the one who called the carriage for Rongshou? Mu Qinghe was a little surprised that Jiang Yuqing actually knew about Rongshou, but she still nodded. Yes. Jiang Yuqing's expression was a little cold, as if he was thinking about something. After a moment, he asked again. That Rongshou, what kind of person is he? Mu Qinghe was even more shocked. Why was Jiang Yuqing suddenly curious about Rongshou? There were so many things to deal with right now, but he was actually wasting time and energy on such an unrelated person. Mu Qinghe suppressed the doubts in her heart and briefly told him about Rongshou's situation. He didn't know much about Rongshou, so he finished with a few words. As Jiang Yuqing spoke, he looked at Jiang Yuqing's expression. That's about it. Does eldest young master suspect that there's something wrong with him? Jiang Yuqing's lips moved, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He just shook his head and let Mu Qinghe leave. After Mu Qinghe left and closed the door, Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes in annoyance. How could he think about these things at this time? On the one hand, the person who wanted to assassinate him hadn't been found yet. On the other hand, who was the first master behind 100 Herbs building? He didn't know whether it would be good or bad for him. Most importantly, he was about to go to Dahuang Swamp. He had to adjust his physical condition as soon as possible and prevent anything from happening to Sheng Wanwan. He really shouldn't spend time and energy asking these questions. But, for some reason, the scene of that day kept appearing in his mind from time to time. The heavy snow was swirling, and the world was crystal white. In the warm and spacious horse carriage, a man and woman were leaning against each other. She leaned tightly against that man's embrace, and her hair was messy. Her cheeks were flushed, and there seemed to be ripples in her eyes, which were mesmerizing. She was still wrapped in his black cloak. She was like a treasure being held in his hands. Her smile was so pure and clean, and there was a hint of unconcealable sweetness amidst her shyness. Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes and looked tired. However, in his mind, another scene flashed past. It was a scorching summer day. Thousand View Garden, by the lake outside the piano room. A woman also revealed such a smile. It was bright and dazzling, shy, and honest. She said to him, "Yuqing, I have someone I like. Let's forget about the marriage agreement." Digression: tomorrow at 12 a.m. mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 677. The next morning, Rong Xiao left with Yan Qing, UMO, 36 respected Elder Ming, and the others. Although Chu Luiyue was reluctant to part with them, he had no choice but to do so. He secretly hoped that he could settle the matters here as soon as possible. The snow on the road had basically been cleared. After sending them off, Chu Luiyue returned to the Chongshu Pavilion. Yuqi Song and Elder Xia Yi were discussing the matter of sending people to Dahuang Swamp. Unlike the other sects, the people of Chongshu Pavilion, from top to bottom, were not interested in this matter. On the one hand, the Chongshu Pavilion had experienced a series of setbacks in the past 2 years, and these people had barely survived. They would rather cultivate in a down-to-earth manner than risk their lives for an uncertain opportunity. On the other hand, there were less than 100 people left in the entire Chongshu Pavilion. It was really not a wise choice to send so many people to take the risk. What if something happened again? Whether it was Yuqi Song, Elder Xia Yi, or the disciples in the sect, they were all very conservative about this trip. Moreover, they were going with the third princess and the other sections. No one knew what would happen during this trip. This trip is dangerous, and it might not be beneficial for us. I think we shouldn't go, right? Elder Xia Yi asked tentatively. Anyway, this isn't a mandatory requirement. The other sects might be overjoyed that we have 10 vacancies. Yuqi Song stroked his beard. Although you're right, we'll inevitably be criticized if the other sects go except for the Chongshu Pavilion. We've just secured our position as one of the 4 major sections. It's really inappropriate if we don't go this time. On the surface, this matter seemed to be the result of a joint discussion between the royal family and the various sections. But in fact, without the third princess's permission, Song Wuan would never take the initiative to suggest this. In other words, they had to go this time. Otherwise, they would very likely offend the third princess. Elder Xia Yi frowned with a grave expression. Why don't we choose a compromise? Let's just pick a few people to go. Now that there are few people in our Chongshu Pavilion, it should be reasonable for a few fewer people to go. Yuqi Song nodded. It's not impossible. However, it's a little troublesome as to who to send. Among the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion, not many would be willing to go. He also found it difficult to choose. "Master, let me go." A clear voice came from outside the door. The two of them raised their heads at the same time and saw Chu Luyue, dressed in red, walking in through the snow outside the door. "Lu Yu, you're back." Yuchi Song was the first to speak. He looked at Chu Luyue up and down, and a hint of shock flashed in his eyes. "You broke through to a rank 5 warrior." He had only left for 2 days. How did this girl break through again? Chu Luyue blinked. "I learned a lot at the Great Sect meeting and successfully broke through." Yuchi Song and Elder Xia Yi were speechless for a long time. Such talent, such speed of breakthrough. What else could they say? After a while, Yuchi Song cleared his throat and asked, "Did the third princess make things difficult for you?" Chu Luyue smiled and shook her head. "No. She didn't. The third princess asked me to go over and chat for a while. I was supposed to come back yesterday, but the snow was too heavy, so I stayed in the house." Yuchi Song heaved a sigh of relief after making sure that she was safe and sound. He didn't have a good impression of Sheng Wanwan. He always felt that she was narrow-minded and narrow-minded. Not only did she take over the power of Sheng Wanyu, but she was also engaged to Jiang Yuqing and had even set the date of the wedding. This made him even more disgusted. If Sheng Wanwan and Sheng Wanwan were really close, why would she be with her ex-fiancé? Yuchi Song didn't say anything and rarely got involved in the affairs of the royal family in the past 2 years. However, he still held a grudge against Sheng Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing. "That's good." Yuchi Song nodded and asked again. "You said that you want to go to Dahuang Swamp." Chu Luyue nodded seriously. "Yes. Have you thought it through? Although there may be countless treasures hidden there, it is also extremely dangerous. It was really hard to predict what would happen during this trip. Lu Yu, your talent is top-notch and you have been improving rapidly. You don't have to go at all. Have you thought it through?" Yuchi Song had seen how Chu Luyue dealt with the Mestyuan gravel, so he knew that she had an unusual trump card. In his opinion, no matter where Chu Luyue cultivated, she would be able to break through smoothly and become a top-notch expert. It was really unnecessary to go to Dahuang Swamp. Chu Luyue smiled. "I've made up my mind. There's no need to persuade me, master. The Chongshu Pavilion can't be left unattended. I'm the most suitable person to go." She was Yuchi Song's disciple and the champion of the Wanjing competition. She was powerful enough. If the Chongshu Pavilion only sent a few people, she was undoubtedly the most suitable person. Also, I have the ability to protect myself. I'll be careful. You don't have to worry, master. Yuchi Song and Elder Xiai exchanged a look. Chu Luyue did seem to want to go. Moreover, she had a good reason. Yuchi Song hesitated for a long time before he finally agreed. "All right. Since you want to go, I won't stop you. Just remember one thing, safety first. If you encounter any danger, don't try to be brave. If necessary, remember to call for help." He was talking about the whistle. Chu Luyue felt a warmth in her heart. "I understand. Don't worry, master. I'll go too." As soon as Chu Luyue finished speaking, a familiar voice came from outside the door. She looked back. Chang Wanzhou was standing outside the door. The boy's beautiful and delicate face was expressionless. His soft, short blonde hair hung down, with a few strands covering his eyes. However, the determination and stubbornness in his eyes were incomparably clear. Chu Luyue smiled. She had already guessed it, so she wasn't surprised. She turned to look at Yuchi Song and Elder Shi. "Little Zhou is not weak. It's not a bad idea for him to go with me. What do you think? Elder Shy laughed. Since you're going, the boy will naturally go with you. Even if we don't agree, he'll definitely sneak in. In that case, can we still say no? Chang Wanzhou was practically Chu Liyue's pendant. He would go wherever she went. Moreover, he was unsociable and unruly, but he listened to every word Chu Liyue said. It was actually not a bad idea for him to go with Chu Liyue. After all, he was also very strong. Yuchi Song chuckled helplessly. Since that's the case, then both of you can go. Pavilion Master, can I go with you? Another little head poked out from behind Chang Wanzhou. A round little face appeared in front of them. It was none other than Yi Ranran. Elder Xiai was a little surprised. Ranran, why do you want to go with us? Yi Ranran was still young. In his opinion, he was still a child. She had always been obedient. He didn't expect her to want to go to such a dangerous place like the Huang Swamp. Yi Ranran said somewhat embarrassedly. I heard that there are many precious medicinal herbs in Da Huang Swamp. I want to go and have a look. She really wanted to go there. Disregarding everything else, Yi Ranran had always been extremely passionate and persistent when it came to alchemy. It was understandable that she was tempted by Da Huang Swamp. But that place was really dangerous. Elder Shai frowned and didn't say anything for a long time. Yi Ranran looked eagerly at Chu Liyue. The corners of Chu Liyue's mouth lifted slightly. She looked at Yuchi Song and Elder Shai. Let her go. Mobile users, please browse the Love Network for a better reading experience. Chapter 678. Ranran is very talented in alchemy, and she'll definitely benefit a lot from this trip. With me and Xiao Zhou here, we will definitely ensure her safety. Chu Liyue said seriously. Yi Ranran quickly raised his hand. Pavilion Master, I'll cultivate hard and be careful. I won't be a burden to Lu Yu and Wanzhou. She wanted to go to Da Huang Swamp, but she wouldn't let herself be a burden to everyone. In that case, she might as well not go. Seeing that the two elders were still hesitating, Chu Liyue added. With Ranran around, the three of us can take care of each other. Yuchi Song looked at Elder Xie. She's your disciple. You decide. Elder Xie pondered for a long time before he finally agreed. All right. But Ranran, you have to do what you said just now. Yi Ranran's combat strength was indeed not as good as Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou's. Her only advantage was probably her talent as a celestial physician. It would be good if she could really gain some experience on this trip. He just hoped that she wouldn't cause trouble to Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou. Yi Ranran's face was filled with joy. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Pavilion Master. Elder Xiai laughed. You should be thanking Lu Yu. We don't have much time left. You'd better prepare yourselves in the next 2 days. They nodded in agreement. Chu Liyue rose to his feet and left with Chang Wanzhou and Yi Ranran to discuss the departure. After they left, Elder Xiai looked at Yuchi Song with a much more serious expression. Pavilion Master, have you heard about what happened in the Jiang Mansion in Xiling City in the past 2 days? Yuchi Song asked. You mean, the assassination attempt on Jiang Yuqing? Elder Xiai nodded, then shook his head. Jiang Yuqing has offended a lot of people. It's normal for someone to attack him. But it was rumored that Jiang Yuqing had gathered his former subordinates, and that person had mixed in and almost succeeded. Pavilion Master, do you know that the people he called to the Jiang Mansion that day were actually the people who followed him to the southern border? Yuchi Song nodded. I know. Speaking of which, he did it for me to see. To be precise, it's for the Chongshu Pavilion. Elder Xiai's eyes widened. You mean, I went to look for him earlier and told him about the chaos yuan gravel. He tried his best to clear his name and said that he would help investigate the matter. For this reason, he gathered all those people together. He seems to have kept a low profile, but in fact, if someone investigated, they would have found out. So that's how it is. In this way, no one will be alarmed, and he will show that he wants to help you find out the truth. This Jiang Yuqing is really thoughtful. He's always been like this. He's never been at a disadvantage. Yuqi Song's tone was indifferent, but there was a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. However, the fact that someone tried to assassinate him should be an accident. He probably didn't expect that he would be ambushed in his own home. Elder Xiai asked curiously, "Didn't you say that the assassin failed to hurt him?" Yuqi Song sneered. If that person didn't succeed, would Jiang Yuqing be so exasperated that he sent people to search Xiling City overnight? In the past 2 days, he had almost turned the entire city upside down. If he hadn't suffered a loss, he wouldn't have done this at this time. After all, he had just set the date of his wedding with the third princess. It was really inappropriate for him to do this. You're right. Elder Xiai chuckled. I just don't know who did it. Someone who could take advantage of Jiang Yuqing's subordinates must not be an ordinary person. I'm really curious about Jiang Yuqing's injuries. Yuqi Song's eyes flickered with a hint of coldness. He brought this upon himself. Chu Luiyue returned to her room and cultivated in peace. After breaking through to the 5th stage, she clearly felt that her 5 senses were much more sensitive than before. After unlocking the 5 treasures, her cultivation speed was also much faster than before. This made Chu Luiyue feel much more at ease. After all, one's strength was what gave them confidence. After circulating the force in her body for 1 cycle, Chu Luiyue's entire person became energized. She was even looking forward to the trip to Dahuang Swamp. At this thought, she carefully checked the things that 36 respected Elder Ming and Rong Xiu had given her. With just a glance, he really found quite a few good things. In any case, they were more than enough to save her life if she encountered any danger. Chu Luiyue took out a bronze disc. This thing seems to be able to teleport. Chu Luiyue didn't think much of it at the time, but now that she took it out, she remembered that it was actually very valuable. More importantly, it was priceless. Even if you had the money, you might not be able to buy it. According to its level, the distance it could teleport was also different. Chu Luiyue looked at the bronze disc in her hand. It was only the size of a palm and was heavy when she picked it up. There were already rust spots on it. It was obvious that it had not been used for a long time. I wonder how far this thing can teleport, Chu Luiyue was curious. She wiped off the dust on it and injected a trace of origin power. The bronze disc did not move at all. Chu Luiyue was a little puzzled. As long as it was an origin tool, there would be some movement when origin power was injected. However, this thing did not even have the slightest movement. She poured in even more origin power. This time, she used 50% of her strength. The bronze disc still did not change at all. Chu Luiyue was originally just curious, but now her fighting spirit was stimulated. She didn't believe that she couldn't even open a bronze disc like this. Thus, she took a deep breath and injected 100% of her origin power into it. Crack! A crisp shattering sound was suddenly heard. Chu Luiyue was stunned. She wouldn't break it, would she? This was given to me by someone. If I broke it just like that. Chu Luiyue quickly stopped and put the thing in front of her eyes to take a closer look. There was an extremely small crack in the middle of the bronze disc. It's really broken. Chu Luiyue felt a headache coming on. Just as she was thinking about how to repair this thing, a bright stream of light suddenly flashed through the gap. It disappeared in an instant. If Chu Luiyue was not staring at it closely, she would not have noticed it. That's... Chu Luiyue frowned and stared at the crack for a while. This black seems a little off, Chu Luiyue's mind raced. In the end, she chose to continue injecting her origin power into it. Crack. The crack became even bigger. The light inside also flashed more frequently. Chu Luiyue continued to inject her origin power into it. After an unknown period of time, a piece of bronze suddenly shattered and fell. Something inside suddenly protruded. Chu Luiyue took a closer look and was stunned. This is actually a petal. Of course, this petal was not real. It was carved out of a transparent crystal. Although it was transparent, at first glance, it was overflowing with light and color. It was extremely magnificent. The entire bronze disc was filled with cracks. It was as if a layer of bronze skin was protruding. Chu Luiyue injected another strand of origin power. Bang! Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 679. The layer of bronze on top fell off in an instant. A few petals rose up one after another. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly and looked at a blooming transparent crystal peach blossom. The petals were oval with needles on the edge and a few stamens in the middle. It was indeed a peach blossom. After shaking off all the bronze on the surface, all that was left was a crystal peach blossom that was cold to the touch, clear and beautiful. Chu Luiyue did not know whether to laugh or cry. So this is what this seemingly rough bronze disc looks like inside. I wonder how 36 respected Elder Ming kept it. It's actually placed like this. Chu Luiyue played with the thing in her hand. It could teleport, but how was this thing used? Suddenly, the petals closed slightly. A subtle touch was felt. In the next moment, Chu Luiyue seemed to have injected a stream of force into it subconsciously. The stamen swayed gently and cut her slender fingers. The dark red blood instantly seeped into the transparent crystal and quickly dyed it pink. Chu Luiyue did the whole process smoothly. Seeing this scene, she did not have any fear in her heart. She just continued to stare at it. Then, a stream of light flashed and the crystal peach blossom disappeared instantly. Chu Luiyue felt a pain in her wrist. She looked down and saw a pink peach blossom mark on the inner side of her left wrist. The imprint was only the size of a fingernail, and it was a light pink color. It was vivid and lifelike on the side of her fair and delicate wrist. It recognized me as its master. Chu Luiyue felt a little strange. She did not know what this thing was, but it had inexplicably turned into a peach blossom mark on her wrist. With a thought, she let the force in her body surge toward the peach blossom mark. A white light flashed. A sense of emptiness came. Chu Luiyue's figure disappeared on the spot. Darkness flashed in front of her eyes and her body fell down as if it was being dragged by something. However, this feeling only lasted for a short while. Soon, Chu Luiyue's feet seemed to have stepped on solid ground. The darkness before his eyes gradually dissipated. Chu Luiyue closed his eyes and looked at the scene in front of him. This look almost made her heart jump out of her chest. Because this was her zither room. She loved this place very much in her previous life. Everything inside was arranged according to her preferences. With just one look, she could confirm that this was indeed her zither room. Bookshelf, desk, guqin. Chu Luiyue was shaken to the core when he came to this place and saw everything that he was so familiar with. The blood in his body seemed to have stopped flowing at this moment. In her mind, a rare blank appeared. For a moment, she did not know what to do. After a while, she took a deep breath and gradually calmed down the emotions in her heart. At the same time, a question popped up in his mind. The peach blossom crystal stone could indeed teleport, but how did it bring her here? She had thought of many places before, but she never would have thought that it would be here. Could it be, was it because she subconsciously wanted to come here? It's good that you're here. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly rang out. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is right here. Chu Luiyue was taken aback. Really? Are you sure? She knew the entire space of this zither room very well. She didn't remember putting the purple gold Bodhi leaf here. But the legendary three-eyed eagle was very sure, yes. And fortunately, because you have a contract with me, your body is tainted with the aura of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is not alert at this time, so it's a good time to take it away. Chu Luiyue looked around then, where is that thing? Since she was already here, of course she had to seize the opportunity. If she followed the normal procedure, she didn't know when she would be able to enter this place. Now that she was here, Chu Luiyue couldn't care less about her sadness. Her mind was full of thoughts of finding the purple gold Bodhi leaf. It's in that guqin. The legendary three-eyed eagle quickly said. Chu Luiyue was stunned. What? Really, she would never have thought that the legendary purple gold Bodhi leaf was hidden in her phoenix-tailed guqin. You mean, that thing is hidden under the guqin, right? Chu Luiyue said uncertainly, her voice inexplicably weak. No, it's in that guqin. The corners of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched fiercely. Do I have to split this guqin open and take the purple gold Bodhi leaf? One must know that this was an extremely precious guqin that she had always cherished. She really couldn't bear to destroy it now. Moreover, although this guqin looked delicate, it was actually made of extremely hard wood. With her current strength, it would take her a lot of effort to split it open. Most importantly, Jiang Yuqing had guarded this place very tightly. If she really caused a commotion, it would probably cause a lot of trouble. The legendary three-eyed eagle said, there's no need for that. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is sentient. It must have chosen to stay here because it likes it. We just have to lure it out. Chu Luiyue inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. Then how do we lure it out? The purple gold Bodhi is the divine tree of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan. There is an indescribable attraction between our clan and it. Therefore, I can do it myself. That's even better. Chu Luiyue nodded in agreement while thinking to herself that this purple gold Bodhi was indeed a divine tree. Even a single leaf was so difficult to deal with. A black phantom slowly appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. In order not to attract attention, it was much smaller than usual, about the size of an ordinary eagle. When it spread its wings, it was just as long as the guqin. The legendary three-eyed eagle hovered in the air, looking down at the guqin from above. A heavy and majestic aura gradually emanated from its body, enveloping the guqin. Something seemed to flash on the body of the guqin. But Chu Luiyue didn't see it clearly. Then, the third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened. At the same time, a strange fluctuation suddenly appeared on the body of the guqin. It was as if something was running across it. Chu Luiyue's mind stirred, and he looked carefully. He saw that the fluctuation was rolling back and forth, like a small wave. Something seemed to want to run out, but because the entire guqin had been sealed by the legendary three-eyed eagle's aura, it could only run back and forth like this. Gradually, the fluctuation became smaller. That thing finally revealed its true appearance. A purple gold leaf. It floated back and forth on the guqin, shining all over. Chu Luiyue exclaimed in his heart, so this is the legendary purple gold Bodhi leaf. It looked like a leaf, but in fact, it was more like an intelligent spirit. The third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle stared at the purple gold Bodhi leaf and was about to put it away. A series of footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. Greetings, eldest young master. Chu Luiyue was shocked. why did Jiang Yuqing suddenly come? Digression, 6:00. Tomorrow, we will resume 5 chapters together. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 680. Jiang Yuqing's voice sounded faintly. I'm just here to take a look as usual. All of you can leave. Yes. From the sound of it, it seemed that the guard in charge of guarding had left. Jiang Yuqing took out the key and opened the door. Creak, Jiang Yuqing walked into the room and turned around to close the door. The zither room was as quiet as ever. He looked around. Everything was still the same as before. It was as if nothing had happened. Jiang Yuqing's gaze finally fell on the zither. The broken string had not been repaired yet. Scene after scene replayed in his mind, as if it had happened yesterday. It was incomparably vivid. Jiang Yuqing's expression gradually turned cold. He retracted his gaze, walked to the table at the side, and sat down. Then, he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. He didn't sleep well last night and had nightmares. It was different from the pain of being burned in a sea of fire. This time, the weather in the dream was good and a gentle breeze blew. It was originally very good. Except for the words that person said. She said that she had someone she liked. In the dream, Jiang Yuqing heard himself asking over and over again who that person was. He also heard himself repeating that this engagement could not be called off. Actually, at that time, he and Sheng Wanyu hadn't been engaged yet. Both sides only had this intention, but nothing had been done yet. Sooner or later, the princess would ascend the throne, and sooner or later, she would need an engagement. In the entire Tianling dynasty, countless young talents admired her. But in the end, she chose him. Perhaps it was because of his father's identity, or perhaps it was because he was outstanding in all aspects. The world said that he and the princess were in love with each other, but he knew that wasn't the case. That person, born to be noble, perfect and flawless. Except, she didn't love him. It seemed that the princess treated him very well, but in reality, she treated everyone very well. Therefore, in Jiang Yuqing's opinion, there was nothing special about it. This even made him feel a little disgusted. But no matter what he did, there seemed to be an invisible barrier around her. It could not be seen or touched, but it truly existed. He thought that no one would be able to get close to her or touch her, so he comforted himself that if he were to marry her, he would be closer to her than others. This wasn't bad either. It was not until that day that he realized he was wrong. In this world, there was someone who could easily enter her heart. And that person wasn't him. In the dream, he was constantly suspicious and questioning, and his attitude was intense. But in reality, that was not what he had done on that day. He was only surprised for a moment before he calmly asked who that person was. However, even now, he still had no idea who that person was. At the end of the day, he only smiled and said, "All right." However, in the end, they still entered into a marriage contract. Jiang Yuqing rubbed his eyebrows and glanced at the guqin. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. Soon after, he quickly got up and walked to the side of the zither. At first glance, the zither didn't seem to have changed. But, Jiang Yuqing stared intently at a certain spot on the zither. When did a purple gold color appear here? He would come to take a look at this zither almost every once in a while. Almost no one was more familiar with it than him. He remembered clearly that such a mark had never appeared on it before. In fact, it wasn't there the last time he came. He stretched out his hand and reached for the zither. Suddenly, a cold wind came from behind. Alarm bells rang in his heart and he immediately turned around. A huge black phantom pounced over. It directly knocked him to the side. Before he could see the other party's appearance clearly, he was already thrown to the ground. At the same time, a black figure suddenly appeared behind the cabinet on the other side. Jiang Yuqing's eyes suddenly widened. He actually didn't notice that there was someone in this room just now. He saw that black figure directly hugging the zither in his arms. Jiang Yuqing said angrily, "How dare you?" He held his breath, flipped over, and pulled out his saber. Then, he slashed straight at that person. The saber slashed down. That person's figure actually disappeared on the spot in an instant. Jiang Yuqing's saber missed. He was shocked and subconsciously looked back. However, he only saw a huge wing sweep past his eyes. Then, it also disappeared in an instant. Everything happened in an instant. By the time Jiang Yuqing reacted, there was no one else in the room other than him. The blood in his chest was surging. When the huge black figure pounced on him just now, it gave him a heavy blow. But how could he care about that at this moment? The zither had been stolen. Right in front of his eyes. Jiang Yuqing couldn't believe it. "Guards! Guards!" he shouted angrily. The guards outside heard the sound and hurriedly rushed over. "Eldest young master. What's wrong? What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong." Jiang Yuqing swallowed the blood in his mouth. Because of his anger, his face was flushed red, and his veins were bulging. His facial features looked a little ferocious. "I told you to guard this zither room well. What did you do? How could you let someone sneak in without a sound? What's the use of having you?" When the guards saw this, they were all shocked and immediately knelt down. "Eldest young master, we've been guarding here all this time. We've never let anyone in." Jiang Yuqing recalled the scene of that person disappearing just now. It didn't seem to cause any fluctuations in the void. Instead, it disappeared in an instant. This kind of situation. It didn't seem to be an ordinary method. "Are you sure that you've been guarding outside the door all this time? No one came in, and you didn't notice any movements?" Jiang Yuqing asked sternly. The guards trembled with fear. What this subordinate said is true. Looking at the shocked and terrified expressions on the guards' faces, Jiang Yuqing also believed them a little. But, in this way, it would undoubtedly be more difficult to find out who that person was. And those huge black wings, he didn't seem to have seen such a magical beast before. "You guys go down first. Don't say a word about what happened today," Jiang Yuqing said with an ugly expression. The guards looked at each other. This eldest young master was so angry. Was he going to let them go just like that? Jiang Yuqing glanced at them. "What, don't you understand? This subordinate will remember." After saying that, the guards hurriedly left. After they left, Jiang Yuqing looked at the place where the zither was placed. There was nothing on it. Everyone knew that the zither room in Thousand View Garden was one of the Empress concubine's favorite places when she was alive. If the news of the zither being stolen spread, someone would definitely use this matter to make a fuss. At that time, he, who had been in charge of guarding this zither room, would definitely become the target of public criticism. Therefore, he had to investigate this matter himself. Thinking of this, he glanced in the direction where the guards left, and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 681. When Chu Luiyue opened her eyes again, she had already returned to her room in the Chongshu Pavilion. After confirming that she had returned safely, Chu Luiyue let out a long sigh of relief. That was close. She was almost discovered by Jiang Yuqing just now. If she was a step later, who would have thought that Jiang Yuqing would suddenly go to the zither room at this time? She took off her black robe and asked the legendary three-eyed eagle, "What's the matter?" He didn't see you just now, did he? No. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle was as calm and indifferent as ever, with a trace of contempt. He's just strong in appearance. Jiang Yuqing's reaction was simply terrible compared to a normal warrior of the same level. There must be something wrong with his body. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle didn't have a physical body now, it was still a divine beast after all. Moreover, after contracting with Chu Luiyue, its strength had been recovering. Although it was slow, its aura was indeed strengthening. It wouldn't be a problem to deal with Jiang Yuqing. Chu Luiyue was relieved when she heard this. After listening to the analysis of the legendary three-eyed eagle, she couldn't help but sneer. I've also sensed it. His strength is indeed much weaker than before. It seems that the matter of the Chaos Yuan gravel was indeed done by him. Although I don't know what method he used to make it seem that his realm hasn't changed at all, his strength has clearly regressed. In addition to the bloody hole that she had sent out earlier, the current Jiang Yuqing's body was probably in a mess. However, this thing is really useful. After such a long journey back and forth, the force in my body only consumed a little. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she looked at the peach blossom mark on the inner side of her left wrist. The peach blossoms were shining and blooming gently. Although she didn't know how this thing suddenly brought her to the zither room, being able to return safely and smoothly was enough to prove its ability. This thing was indeed much more useful than she had expected. The next time I see 36th Elder Ming, I have to thank him properly. After saying that, Chu Luiyue once again confirmed that the doors and windows were locked and that no one would disturb her. Only then did she take out the zither from her universe ring and carefully placed it in front of her. She was about to subdue the purple gold Bodhi leaf just now, but Jiang Yuqing came and had to stop. Looking at the zither, Chu Luiyue's feelings were complicated. She really didn't expect that she would bring it back so inexplicably. Jiang Yuqing didn't dare to make this matter public, so she wasn't worried that he would investigate it openly. After thinking for a while, Chu Luiyue collected her thoughts and prepared to find the purplish gold Buddha leaf again. He looked up, down, left, and right, and finally saw a purple gold color in the corner. It was as if someone had used a brush to lightly draw a line on it, and it was brilliant. That wisp of purple gold light swayed slightly, as if it was restless and wanted to escape. However, it was because she was Jiang, had escaped. Yes, this was a seal that the legendary three-eyed eagle had hurriedly placed on him. Chu Luiyue focused her eyes. Let's begin. Crash. The legendary three-eyed eagle appeared again. The huge black figure was suspended in midair. A powerful pressure filled the entire room. The third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened. The layer of black on the zither quickly dissipated. A purple gold leaf suddenly leaped out from within. A red light shot out of the legendary three-eyed eagle's eye. Bang! The purple gold leaf was instantly wrapped up. It couldn't move. At a glance, the outer layer was oval in color. It was clear and translucent, and it looked like a piece of amber. Chu Luiyue reached out and took the item. It was slightly warm to the touch and emitted a faint leaf fragrance. Holding it in her hand, she could clearly feel the aura and power that was full of vitality. The force in Chu Luiyue's body seemed to be attracted by this power and gradually increased its flow speed. This purple gold Bodhi leaf is so powerful. Chu Luiyue was shocked, and her eyes widened slightly. Just this purple gold Bodhi leaf alone contained more energy than almost all the medicinal herbs she had ever seen. This is the leaf of a divine tree. Normal herbs can't be compared to it. There was a hint of pride in the legendary three-eyed eagle's voice. To be worshipped as a divine tree by the legendary three-eyed eagle clan, it was naturally extraordinary. Chu Luiyue looked at the small ball in her hand. So, it's temporarily locked up. That's right. When I find the rest of the items, I can rebuild my body. Even the calm and indifferent legendary three-eyed eagle could not hide its excitement when talking about this. It had been trapped in the heavenly square cauldron for 1,000 years. It had thought that it would be tortured and destroyed by the karmic fire, but it had not expected that it would be reborn one day. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the purple gold Bodhi leaf to appear in a place like the Tianling dynasty. However, it had appeared. If this was not fate, then what was it? Chu Luiyue was also very happy that the legendary three-eyed eagle was one step closer to restoring its body. However, she also had a question in her heart. How did this purple gold Bodhi leaf appear in this guqin? She had not told the legendary three-eyed eagle her true identity. Therefore, it did not know that this guqin was originally hers. She had played this guqin for more than 10 years, but she did not know that there was a purple gold Bodhi leaf hidden in it. Could it be that it was hidden so well that even she did not notice it? After all, if not for the legendary three-eyed eagle's reminder, she would not have known about it. This purple gold Bodhi leaf should have been in this guqin for several years. As for who put it there, I don't know. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. You're saying that someone deliberately put it in there? Of course. There are only 2 purple gold Bodhi trees in the world. One is in my clan, and the other is in the Far East. And that place is more than 10,000 miles away from here. It is impossible for such a small purple gold Bodhi leaf to arrive here alone. Therefore, someone must have deliberately brought it here. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. A few years, why did she not know that there was an extra purple gold Bodhi leaf in here? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 682. After thinking for a while, Chu Luiyue still could not come up with an answer. In the end, she could only put this matter aside for the time being. After carefully putting away the purple gold Bodhi leaf, she once again entered into a state of cultivation. 2 days passed in a hurry. On the morning of the 3rd day, Chu Luiyue had just completed a cycle when she heard Yi Ranran's voice from outside. Lu Yu, we should set off. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear, and there seemed to be light flickering in the depths of her eyes. After unlocking the 5 treasures, not only did her cultivation speed increase by a lot, even the force in her body was purer than before. She clenched her fists and stretched her muscles and bones. She could faintly hear the sound of bones cracking. This long-awaited feeling of being filled with power made Chu Luiyue feel refreshed. She walked over to open the door. Yi Ranran and Chang Wanzhou were already waiting for her. Let's go. After the few of them went down the mountain, they went straight to Pingliang Square. They were going to Dahuang Swamp from there. Xiling City, which had always been bustling, seemed to have become somewhat solemn today. There were even fewer people on the streets. When they arrived at Pingliang Square, they realized that there were even fewer people here. This was because the Black Cavalry had already imposed martial law in advance. In the huge square, several teleportation portals were temporarily closed. Only the one in the center was open. Beside the teleportation portal, there were 1,000 Black Cavalry troops ready to set off. At the front of the Black Cavalry was a young man in black armor. His shoulders and back were straight, and his whole body exuded a strong murderous aura. It was Mu Qinghe. Although he was a general in Xiling City, most of the time, he wore casual clothes. Now that he suddenly put on his armor, the fierce and biting cold aura that he had fought in battles with thousands of people was instantly obvious. It was daunting. Yi Ranran said in a low voice, Vice Admiral Mu looks different today. As expected of the Lieutenant General of the Black Cavalry. To be able to rise rapidly and reach his current position in a short 10 years, he was indeed capable. Chu Luiyue stared at her for a moment before looking away. His eyes were calm. The current Mu Qinghe no longer had anything to do with her. Yi Ran glanced at her. Seeing that her reaction was ordinary, she felt a little strange. Lu Yu, aren't you close to Vice Admiral Mu? Should I go and say hello? Chu Liyue smiled. The third princess and the others will be here soon. Isn't this a little inappropriate? Yi Ran thought about it and agreed. After all, there was still 1,000 black cavalry behind them. Then let's go to the side and wait. I think some people from the other sects have already arrived. Chu Liyue nodded. The three of them walked to the other side. Mu Qinghe raised her eyes slightly, just in time to see Chu Liyue and the others walking past. Many people turned to look at her. Curiosity, admiration, respect, jealousy, envy, all kinds of gazes fell on her. Compared to the last time they met, Chu Liyue seemed to have changed. She seemed to be more dazzling than before. This feeling was hard to describe. In short, it was like a piece of raw stone that was gradually polished and gradually released its own brilliance. Or perhaps she was originally a dusty pearl. Now that the layer of dust had finally been wiped off, she was shining brightly. She was completely different from the restrained and cautious woman he saw in country Yaochen a few months ago. In such a short period of time, Chu Liyue had already become a famous figure in West Hill. Her reputation was great, and she was unparalleled. Although he was the one who found her, the things that happened after Chu Liyue came to West Hill had nothing to do with him. Especially after she moved out of the Mu clan, the two of them had almost no contact. Now that they met again, he felt an inexplicable sigh in his heart. However, Mu Qinghe quickly retracted his gaze after taking a glance at her. There were already people from a few sects who had arrived. Chu Liyue looked over and saw many familiar faces. When they saw the three of them, the people who were chatting with each other immediately fell silent. They had already heard that the Chongshu Pavilion would only send 3 people over. Because of this, the other sects even had an extra slot. They had long been guessing who the Chongshu Pavilion would send. When they saw Chu Liyue and the other two, they were more or less shocked. These 3 people were the best seedlings in the Chongshu Pavilion. Not to mention Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou, even Yi Ran had displayed extraordinary talent as a celestial physician during the sect competition. No matter what, the Dahuang Swamp was a dangerous place. Was the Chongshu Pavilion really willing to release all 3 of them at once? Weren't they afraid that something would happen? Chu Liyue turned a blind eye to everyone's gazes. Chang Wanzhou didn't care at all. Yi Ran. Anyway, she was following Lu Yu and Wanzhou. What was there to be afraid of? Hence, the 3 of them calmly found a place to stand at the side. Then, some people greeted them. Chu Liyue and the others also responded to each other. It seems that the Chongshu Pavilion is quite confident in you guys this time. They actually let you guys come together. A shrill voice was heard. Chu Liyue looked up lazily. Ning Jiao. Chu Liyue smiled and slowly said, "That's right. Young Miss Ning, are you worried about our safety? With so many people around, I don't think anything will happen. What do you think?" Ning Jiao snorted. "It's better to be safe than sorry. I'm just saying that casually. I don't mean anything else." Compared to before, her attitude towards Chu Liyue had changed quite a bit. This was a world where strength was respected after all. Chu Liyue first took first place in the Wanjing competition and then won 3 rounds in a row at the sect competition. Ning Jiao was present at that time. Even if she was full of dissatisfaction, she had to admit that Chu Liyue's strength was indeed not to be underestimated. Before coming out this time, her father, Ning Binghai, specially instructed her not to cause trouble. Ning Jiao had suffered before, so she naturally didn't dare to be too presumptuous now. She was just talking nonsense. Of course, no one knew what she was thinking. Chu Luiyue saw that she had retreated in the face of difficulties, so he didn't care too much. The corners of his lips curled up and he didn't say anything. Only then did Ning Jiaojiao secretly heave a sigh of relief. Suddenly, her gaze focused and she couldn't help but ask, "You broke through to a stage 5 warrior." Chu Luiyue glanced at her indifferently. Wasn't it obvious? Only then did Ning Jiaojiao realize that she had lost her composure. She bit her lip and looked away. However, she was still a little shocked in her heart. How long had Chu Luiyue been in Xiling? She actually broke through from a stage 3 warrior to a stage 5 warrior. Didn't that mean that she was even stronger? Not only Ning Jiaojiao, but the people standing at the side were also somewhat shocked. What's there to be proud of when you're a stage 5 warrior? A cold voice with a hint of mockery came from behind. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 683. The surroundings fell silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that it was the people from the Purple Shao Sword sect. This was said by the man in the lead. He looked to be in his late 20s. He was tall and thin, had an ordinary face, and the ends of his hair were faintly purple. Song Qingnian. Chu Luiyue recognized him. This person was the eldest son of the Purple Shao Sword sect master, Song Lian. He was also the young master of the sect. His talent was not bad. If he remembered correctly, he had just broken through to the upper stage of the 7th stage 2 years ago. From the looks of it, he didn't continue to break through. However, with his realm and strength, it was normal for him to not take the 5th stage Chu Luiyue seriously. Senior brother Qingnian, he's the champion of the Wanjing competition. Moreover, he won against 3 people in the sect competition. It's inevitable that he's a little arrogant. Chu Luiyue glanced at the woman behind him. Well, she was also an acquaintance. Young Qin. She seemed to be persuading Song Qingnian, but she couldn't hide the envy in her eyes. Chu Luiyue looked innocent. I was standing here just now. I don't think I said anything. Why are you so smug? Young Qin choked. Song Qingnian was still the experienced one. He scanned Chu Luiyue from head to toe as if he didn't hear her. It's just a small fight. Qin, when you see more of the world in the future, you naturally won't take this seriously. Cultivate well in the future. How can you lose to her? Chu Luiyue raised his brows and secretly admired her. It had only been a short while, but young Qin was already doing so well in the Purple Shao Sword sect. Even Song Qingnian spoke to her like this. In his memory, Song Qingnian was very arrogant because of his identity as the young master of the Purple Shao Sword sect. Now, it seemed that this habit hadn't changed at all. Young Qin seemed to be blushing. Thank you for your praise, senior brother Qingnian. Song Qingnian looked at her and smiled. He patted her arm and walked to the other side. Yi Ran was furious and wanted to go forward to argue with them. Chu Luiyue pulled her back and shook his head gently. Yi Ran was furious. Lu Yu, that person said that to you. Are you going to just let it go? Chu Luiyue smiled. It's just a few words. You didn't lose anything. Why bother with them? I don't know how many people have said this about me in private. Don't tell me that I'm going to investigate every single one of them. But they did it in front of us, everyone's almost here. Let's keep a low profile so as to avoid unnecessary trouble. All right. Yi Ran seemed to be holding back his anger, but seeing Chu Luiyue's firm attitude, he had no choice but to obey. She glanced at Song Qingnian and whispered, "What's so good about being the young master of the Purple Shao Sword sect? When he was your age, Lu Yu, he was a far cry from you." The corners of Chu Liuyue's lips lifted slightly. I know. Song Qingnian was a few years older than her. Back then, he was not convinced by her and challenged her one-on-one. In the end, Song Qingnian was beaten so badly that he took a detour when he saw her. He didn't even attend the regular palace banquet. Chang Wanzhou glanced at Song Qingnian coldly and retracted his gaze. Song Qingnian faintly felt a chill run down his spine. When he looked back, he did not discover anything. On the other hand, Chu Liyue and the other two were whispering something. Their expressions were calm, and they even laughed occasionally. It was as if they didn't take his words seriously at all. Song Qingnian sneered. Qin, you're right. This Chu Liyue isn't just a little arrogant. When we reach Dahuang Swamp, she'll be in trouble. Young Qin lowered her head and didn't say anything. Lu Yu. Surprised cheers sounded. Chu Liyue looked over with a smile on his face. A familiar face appeared in front of him. It was Mu Hongyu. She had originally come with the people from Dragon Teeth Mountain, but when she saw Chu Liyue from afar, she couldn't help but rush over first. I knew you would go too. Only the three of you are going to Chongshu Pavilion. Mu Hongyu had been busy cultivating with Jian Shai these few days, so she didn't know anything about the outside world. Chu Liyue nodded. Senior brothers and senior sisters can't find the time, so they sent the three of us. A sneer came from the side. Song Qingnian had a mocking expression as he said to the person beside him, you make it sound nice. Who doesn't know that Chongshu Pavilion is like this because they can't send anyone? A Chongshu Pavilion with less than 100 people was actually ranked as one of the 4 major sects with them. It really made him feel proud. The smile on Chu Liyue's face faded slightly. Mu Hongyu had already spoken with a cold smile. Isn't it enough to send the 3 of them? I remember that many people here have participated in the sect conference, right? Could it be that any of you defeated Lu Yu? Of course, not everyone at the sect conference could fight with Chu Liyue. But who didn't know that she had defeated a rank 6 warrior? There were quite a number of people present who weren't even rank 6 warriors. Chu Liyue was indeed strong. There was no doubt about that. The surroundings suddenly became much quieter. Song Qingnian frowned. Who are you? How dare you be impudent in front of me? Young Qin whispered. Senior brother Qingnian, she's that faint yuan body. Song Qingnian narrowed his eyes. The slave that Jian Fengqi spent 6 million white crystal coins to buy. As soon as this was said, everyone looked over with subtle expressions. Everyone could hear the provocation in this sentence. In the Tianling dynasty, the status of a slave was inferior, but Mu Hongyu had the faint yuan body, so most people were more envious and jealous. With such a physique, would she still be afraid of being looked down upon when she became a powerhouse in the future? But if this identity was brought out alone, it was obvious that it was deliberately embarrassing. Chu Liyue's face turned cold. A handsome young man had already walked forward and said calmly, Hongyu is our disciple. Hongyu is the last disciple of our hill master. I wonder if young Master Song has any questions. Song Qingnian's expression changed slightly. The surrounding people also revealed looks of astonishment. Mu Hongyu was actually Jian Shai's disciple? If that was the case, then her identity would be extraordinary. One had to know that Jian Shai had only accepted 3 disciples in all these years. Mu Hongyu was the 4th. Jian Shai didn't seem to care about her identity as a slave. And since he was willing to do so, it was enough to show how much he valued Mu Hongyu. In other words, he was Mu Hongyu's backer. Although Song Qingnian had always been arrogant and looked down on others, he wasn't stupid. He knew who he could offend and who he couldn't. Dragon Teeth Mountain's Jian Shai was an extremely protective person. Even his father didn't dare to go against Jian Shai, let alone him. He snorted coldly, waved his sleeves fiercely, and turned his face away. The young man walked in front of Chu Luiyue with a gentle and polite smile. "Miss Chu, I'm Zhu Hong. Before we came, the mountain master and young master instructed us to take care of you. I wonder if you're willing to come with us on this trip to Dahuang Swamp." Jian Shai and Jian Fengqi. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. Looking at Zhu Hong and the other's sincere expressions, her eyebrows curved. "Sure. Thank you in advance. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 684. The relationships between the major sects varied. Upon seeing Dragon Teeth Mountain's attitude, it was obvious that they wanted to protect Chong Su Cabinet. Many people looked at each other with fear in their hearts. Ever since the sneak attack on the Chongshu Pavilion and its decline, Dragon Teeth Mountain had become the boss of all the sections. Although the Purple Shao Sword sect was not weak, it was still inferior to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Therefore, until now, they had tried their best to avoid conflict with Dragon Teeth Mountain. As for the other sects, there was no need to mention them. Chu Luiyue thought to herself, "I owe Dragon Teeth Mountain another favor this time." No matter what, this trip to Dahuang Swamp should save her a lot of unnecessary trouble. Although she was not afraid, she could not be bothered to deal with them one by one. Both sides introduced themselves to each other. The people of Dragon Teeth Mountain had seen or heard of Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou's strength. The talent that Yi Ranran displayed that day was also amazing. Therefore, they were very polite to the three of them. Although there were many disciples in Dragon Teeth Mountain, Jian Shai was upright and forthright, so most of the people in the sect were like him and did not have many tricks up their sleeves. Speaking of which, Jian Fengqi was the most rebellious and unruly person in Dragon Teeth Mountain. Therefore, Chu Luiyue's impression of Dragon Teeth Mountain had always been quite good. In short, after the two sides communicated with each other, they realized that they were quite compatible with each other and their relationship became closer. The surrounding people looked at them with complicated expressions. Some were curious, some were envious, and some were disdainful. However, Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu did not take these seriously. The third princess has arrived. After waiting for a while, when everyone had basically arrived, Shang Wanwan finally appeared. The black cavalry on both sides had already cleared the road. Shang Wanwan walked over slowly. Standing behind her were two elders of the Imperial family, Elder Qiushi and Elder Duanmu Chen. Behind them was another person, Jiang Yuqing. The two of them were not married yet, so Jiang Yuqing did not walk side by side with Shang Wanwan. Seeing their arrival, the entire Pingliang square quieted down. Everyone bowed in unison. Long live the third princess. Chu Luiyue, who was standing in the crowd, also followed suit and curtsied. When she lowered her head, a mocking look flashed across her eyes. Shang Wanwan must have been looking forward to this scene for a long time, right? When he got up again, Chu Luiyue's expression had returned to normal. Shang Wanwan stood still and swept her gaze over the crowd. This consort is heading to the Great Desolate Swamp this time to search for medicine for Imperial Father. Although the Great Desolate Swamp had supreme treasures, it was also extremely dangerous. I am truly grateful that all of you are willing to come along and lend me a hand. His words were spoken in a polite manner. If anyone can help this consort find the treasure she needs, this consort will definitely reward them handsomely. Apart from those few items, all the items that you find will belong to you. Hearing this, many people's eyes began to shine with desire. Those who dared to explore the Great Desolate Swamp all had this mentality. Now, Shang Wanwan said that apart from the items she wanted, the rest would belong to them. How could they not be excited? Many thanks to the third princess. Shang Wanwan smiled. I hope that everyone will have a smooth journey and that this trip will not be in vain. Vice Admiral Mu, please. Mu Qinghe stepped forward and cupped his fists in salute. The 1,000 black cavalry will be divided into 2 teams. The first team will be in front and the second team will be behind. You must ensure the safety of the third princess and everyone else. As he spoke, he raised his right arm. The black guards behind him split into 2 neatly from the middle. The sound of iron boots stepping on the lapis lazuli ground was exceptionally powerful. The first team of 500 black cavalry walked onto the transportation formation. Then, Sheng Wanwan and the others followed. Mu Qinghe stood beside her as if to protect her. Then, the disciples of the various large sects followed. Finally, it was the second team of 500 black cavalry. The people standing around all knelt on one knee and said loudly, "Farewell, third princess. Activate." Mu Qinghe ordered. The transportation formation spun faster and faster. Then, everyone's figures disappeared. The great desolate swamp was extremely far from the West Hill. Even if they used the transportation formation, it would take a lot of time. Fortunately, this transportation formation was specially built and maintained daily, so there were not too many spatial turbulences. Everyone was in the middle of it, but they were not affected much. Although there were many people, Mu Qinghe had arranged for people to carry water pearls that were specially used in the transportation formation. They easily dispelled the darkness and illuminated many people. Such water pearls were expensive to make. Ordinary people could not afford even one. But who was the third princess? 100 or so was considered a small number. Such a scale of travel made many people secretly envious. The third princess is indeed extraordinary. She uses these water pearls as if they are free. Who are you, and who is the third princess? In a few months, the entire Tianling dynasty will be hers, let alone these water pearls. That's true. I heard that back then, when the Empress concubine went on an inspection tour, the scale seemed to be even bigger than this. It's a pity that the Empress concubine only brought the black cavalry back then, so we couldn't see anything. The Empress concubine's status is comparable to the current emperor. Even if she's a princess, she can still mobilize 100,000 black cavalry. The third princess hasn't. Naturally, she can't be compared. But that's all in the past. There's nothing to talk about. The people around were whispering. Their voices were very soft. But because Chu Luiyue had already mastered the 5 treasures, she could hear most of it. She faintly smiled, seemingly inadvertently raising her head to look. In front, Mu Qinghe was standing beside Sheng Wanwan and whispering something. It seemed like she was explaining the situation in Dahuang Swamp. Your Highness, we have to first reach the teleportation formation in Shijiang, and then go to Dahuang Swamp from there. Within Dahuang Swamp, the miasma extends for hundreds of miles. We have to. Mu Qinghe said bit by bit, and Sheng Wanwan also listened carefully. From where Chu Luiyue was, she couldn't see the expression on Sheng Wanwan's face, but she could see her nodding from time to time. She seemed to be very serious. The corner of Chu Luiyue's lips moved, and she thought silently. Mu Qinghe's explanation was quite detailed. When she went to Dahuang Swamp back then, no one told her about all the dangers in such detail. She couldn't remember how many dangers she had encountered in the middle. What Mu Qinghe said was the experience she had gained from fighting in Dahuang Swamp for several years. It was also her experience. The world only knew that Mu Qinghe had volunteered to join the Black Cavalry. In 10 years, she had made outstanding military contributions. In the end, she had suppressed the rebel army in Dahuang Swamp and held military power in her hands. She had made great contributions to stabilize the position of the princess. However, very few people knew that the princess had also entered Dahuang Swamp several times. The current Mu Qinghe was very powerful, but he wasn't this powerful from 10 years ago. Without Shang Guanyu's secret help, he might have died in Da Huang's swamp long ago. But now, these were all in the past. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 685. Chu Luiyue listened nonchalantly, and his mood was calm without any ripples. It sounded like nothing major had happened in Da Huang's swamp for the past 2 years. With the black cavalry stationed there, it was naturally much more stable than before. However, those people were in charge of guarding. This time, Shang Guanwan was going there to find a few herbs and the legendary fiend's blood. Thus, it was naturally more convenient for her to bring some people along. Shang Guanwan was indeed listening very seriously, and she almost remembered every word Mu Qinghe said. She had never been to Da Huang's swamp before, and this was her first time. Rumors had it that the place was barren and dangerous, so she had no interest in it at all. If it weren't for the fact that she had to find a suitable place to carry out her plan, she might never step into Da Huang's swamp's land in her entire life. As for those legendary treasures and even the inheritance of the strong, why would the third princess of the Tianling dynasty care about these things? I will be promoted in a few months, and the entire Tianling dynasty will be mine then. Why should I risk my life in a place like Da Huang Swamp? Not mentioning the danger, I might not even find anything good there. Now that I'm listening to Mu Qinghe, I'll be more confident when the time comes. This is the general situation of Da Huang Swamp. If your highness has anything you don't understand, feel free to ask. The last general will definitely tell you everything he knows. After putting on the armor and leading the troops, Mu Qinghe's way of addressing herself changed. Shang Guanwan curved her lips and smiled. I understand. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. If it weren't for you, this trip would have been very dangerous. Mu Qinghe lowered her head. Your Highness, you flatter me. This is what the last general should do. Vice Admiral Mu, you don't have to be humble. When we reach Da Huang Swamp, we might have to trouble you even more. Don't you think so, Yuqing? As she spoke, she looked at Jiang Yuqing at the side. However, Jiang Yuqing was thinking about something and actually fell into deep thought, so he didn't hear her. Shang Guanwan was dazed. Yuqing. Yuqing. Jiang Yuqing came back to his senses and looked up at her. What happened? Shang Guanwan frowned slightly when she saw that he seemed to have woken up from a dream. Along the way, for some reason, Jiang Yuqing seemed absent-minded. Mu Qinghe's words were so important, but he didn't listen. If he remembered correctly, Jiang Yuqing didn't seem to have been to the Great Desolate Swamp, right? He was such a cautious person. Logically speaking, he should be very concerned about these things. His nonchalant manner was indeed a little strange. Didn't you hear what Vice Admiral Mu said just now? Jiang Yuqing coughed and straightened his collar. Oh, Vice Admiral Mu has already told me about this. Shang Guanwan was skeptical. Mu Qinghe was his woman, so it was normal for her to tell him this in advance. But he wasn't in the right state. Thinking of this, worry surfaced in her eyes. Yuqing, are you okay? Are you too tired these few days? I know that he's been looking for the person who tried to assassinate me recently. Could it be that he's like this because he's exhausted himself over this matter? Jiang Yuqing's eyes flickered, but he didn't admit or deny it. Maybe a little. But I've already handed the matters in Xiling City to Sun Qi and the rest. Shang Guanwan looked at his expression and thought that she had guessed correctly. That's true. Jiang Yuqing is now in a high position, yet he was suddenly assassinated by an unknown person. Furthermore, he couldn't find the culprit even after searching for a few days. It's inevitable that his reputation will be tarnished. Sun Qi has always been good at doing things. Don't worry too much. Jiang Yuqing smiled and nodded. He glanced behind him without batting an eyelid, then quickly retracted his gaze. After a while, he suddenly asked, "Do you remember?" "I remember that Mu Hongyu has a faint yuan body." Mu Qinghe nodded. Shang Wanwan strangely asked, "Why? What's the matter? Why did you suddenly mention her?" "Nothing. I'm just curious because I heard them say a few words when I came over just now. After all, such a physique hasn't appeared in this mainland for thousands of years. I heard that people with such a physique can casually travel through space." "Yeah. Back then, Yuxiang Hall seemed to have spent quite a lot of effort to capture her. If it weren't so rare, why would Jian Fengqi bear to spend 6 million white crystals to bid for her?" Even though Shang Wanwan spent most of her time in the palace, she knew everything that happened outside. Actually, when she saw Mu Hongyu just now, she couldn't help but take a few more glances. "But other than looking a little cute and lively, I can't see anything special for the time being. However, I didn't expect Dragon Teeth Mountain's mountain master to take her in as a disciple." Shang Wanwan's tone was calm. In her heart, she looked down on people who were born as slaves. However, Jian Shai didn't value these things very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have insisted on marrying that ordinary woman as his wife. Speaking of which, Jian Shai and Jian Fengqi could be considered her benefactors. It seems that she has a good relationship with Chu Luiyue and the others. Shang Wanwan frowned slightly. Mu Qinghe explained. "Your Highness, eldest young master. Mu Hongyu is actually also from country Yaoqin. And they used to be students in the same academy. No wonder." Shang Wanwan nodded in understanding. In her heart, she hated Mu Hongyu and Chu Luiyue even more. Jiang Yuqing looked at Mu Hongyu meaningfully. Could she be the person who broke into the zither room and stole the zither that day? After an unknown period of time, a ray of light finally appeared in the darkness ahead. "We're here," Mu Qinghe said in a deep voice. Everyone quieted down and was somewhat nervous. The white light in front of them expanded rapidly. An exit finally appeared in front of everyone. The black cavalry at the front took the lead and walked out. Then, Shang Wanwan and the others followed. Yi Ran was a little worried but also a little excited. "Are we in Dahuang Swamp when we go out?" Chu Luiyue opened her mouth and wanted to say, "Not yet," but in the end, she swallowed her words. The few of them followed the crowd and walked out. After a burst of force, there was a lot of light in front of them. The white light in front of Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed, and she felt that her feet finally stepped on solid ground. She closed her eyes and waited for her eyes to adapt to the light before looking forward. A vast and boundless desert suffused with a dazzling golden color. The hills rose and fell, and heat waves surged. Due to the blazing heat, even the void seemed to have become distorted. Exclamations could be heard around them. "So this is Dahuang Swamp," Mu Qinghe said. "This is only the edge of Shijiang. The real Dahuang Swamp needs to be further in." The person who spoke quickly shut up awkwardly. Many people were shocked. This wasn't Dahuang Swamp. Then what was the real Dahuang Swamp like? Mu Qinghe made a gesture. "Team 1. Open." The 500 black cavalry at the front immediately turned around and marched to the side. In a moment, they arrived about 500 steps away from the teleportation array. Everyone shouted in a low voice and attacked at the same time. In an instant, yellow sand flew everywhere. A huge teleportation array appeared in the desert. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. "Oh, the teleportation array that she personally set up is still there. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 686. The surroundings were silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that it was the people from the Purple Cloud Sword sect. This was said by the leader of the group. He looked to be in his late 20s. He was tall and thin with an ordinary face, and the ends of his hair had a faint purple hue. Song Qingnian. Chu Luiyue recognized him. This person was the eldest son of the sect master of the Purple Cloud Sword sect, Song Lian. He was also the young master of the Purple Cloud Sword sect. His talent wasn't bad. If he remembered correctly, he had just broken through to the 7th rank 2 years ago. Now, it seemed like he didn't continue to break through. However, with his realm and strength, it was normal for him to look down on Chu Luiyue, who was only at the 5th rank. Senior brother Qingnian, he is the champion of the Wanjing Association. Moreover, he won against 3 people in the sect meeting. It's inevitable for him to be a little arrogant. Chu Luiyue glanced at the woman who was speaking behind him. Right, she was also an acquaintance. Yang Axian, She seemed to be persuading Song Qingnian, but she couldn't hide the envy in her eyes. Chu Luiyue looked innocent. I was just standing here just now. I don't think I said anything. Why are you so smug? Yang Axian, was speechless. Song Qingnian was still the old Daoist. He scanned Chu Luiyue from head to toe as if he didn't hear what she said. It's just a small fight. Xan, when you see more of the world in the future, you will naturally not take this kind of seriously. If you cultivate well in the future, how could you lose to her? Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows and secretly admired him. It hadn't been long, but Yang Xan was already doing so well in the Purple Firmament Sword sect. Even Song Qingnian spoke to her like this. In her memory, Song Qingnian was very arrogant because of his identity as the young master of the Purple Firmament Sword sect. Now, it seemed that this bad habit hadn't changed at all. Yang Xan seemed to blush. Thank you for your praise, senior brother Qingnian. Song Qingnian looked at her and smiled. He patted her arm and led his men to the other side. Yi Ran was furious and wanted to go forward to argue with them. Chu Luiyue pulled her back and shook his head gently. Yi Ran was angry. Luiyue, are you going to let that person off just like that? Chu Luiyue smiled. It's just a few words. I didn't lose anything. Why should I be calculated with them? I don't know how many people have said that about me in private. Am I going to pursue every single one of them? But they did it in front of me. Everyone is almost here. Let's keep a low profile to avoid more trouble. Yi Ran seemed to be holding back her anger, but seeing Chu Luiyue's firm attitude, she could only listen. Yi Ran felt like she was holding back her anger, but seeing Chu Luiyue's firm attitude, she could only obey. What's there to be proud of as the young master of the Purple Firmament Sword sect? When he was your age, he was far inferior to you. When he was your age, Luiyue, he was far worse than you. I know. Song Qingnian was a few years older than her. Back then, he wasn't convinced of her strength and challenged her to a duel. Song Qingnian was a few years older than her. Back then, he was not convinced of her strength and challenged her to a duel. Song Qingnian was a few years older than her. Back then, he hadn't been convinced by her and had challenged her to a duel. Chang Wanzhou cast a cold glance at Song Qingnian and retracted his gaze. Song Qingnian felt a chill run down his spine. He looked back but didn't discover anything. Chu Luiyue and the other two were talking in low voices. Their expressions were calm, and they even laughed occasionally. It was as if they didn't care about what he had said. Song Qingnian sneered. Qin, you're right. This Chu Luiyue is really arrogant. When we reach the Great Desolate Swamp, she'll be in trouble. Young Qin lowered her head and didn't say anything. Luiyue. Cheers of surprise could be heard. Chu Luiyue looked over, her face full of smiles. A familiar face appeared in front of her. It was Mu Hongyu. She had originally come with the people from Dragon Tooth Mountain. However, when she saw Chu Luyue from afar, she couldn't help but rush over first. I knew you'd go as well. Are only the three of you from the Void Rush Pavilion going? Mu Hongyu had been busy cultivating with Jian Shai over the past few days. She didn't know anything about what was going on outside. Chu Luyue nodded. My senior brothers and sisters couldn't find the time, so they sent the three of us. A sneer could be heard from the side. Song Qingnian had a mocking look on his face as he said to the person beside him, "Heh, you make it sound so nice. Who doesn't know that the Void Rush Pavilion is like this because they can't send anyone?" The Void Rush Pavilion, which had less than 100 people, was actually on par with them as one of the four major sects. The smile on Chu Liyue's face was slightly faint. However, Mu Hongyu had already sneered. Isn't it enough to send the three of them? I remember that many of you here have participated in the sect conference, right? Could it be that any of you won against Lu Yu? Of course, not everyone could fight against Chu Luyue at the sect conference. However, who didn't know that she had defeated a rank 6 warrior? Among the people present, there were many who were not even rank 6 martial artists. Chu Luyue was indeed strong. There was no doubt about that. The surroundings suddenly became much quieter. Song Qingnian frowned. Who are you? How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? Yang Axian said in a low voice. Senior brother Qingnian, she is that virtual essence body. Song Qingnian narrowed his eyes. The slave that Jian Fengqi spent 6 million white crystal coins to buy. As soon as he said that, everyone looked over with subtle expressions. Everyone could hear the provocation in this sentence. In the Tianling dynasty, slaves were of a lower status. However, Mu Hongyu had a virtual essence body, so most people were more envious and jealous of her. With such a body, would she still be afraid of being looked down upon when she became an expert in the future? However, if this identity was brought out alone, it was obvious that she was deliberately trying to embarrass people. Chu Liyue's face turned cold. A handsome young man walked forward and said calmly, Hongyu is the last disciple of our mountain master. Hongyu is our mountain chieftain's last disciple. May I know if young Lord Song has any questions? Song Qingnian's expression changed slightly. The people around him were also surprised. Mu Hongyu was Jian Shai's last disciple? If that was the case, then her identity was extraordinary. After so many years, Jian Shai had only accepted 3 disciples. Mu Hongyu was the 4th. Jian Shai didn't seem to care about her identity as a slave. Since he was willing to do this, it was enough to show how much he valued Mu Hongyu. In other words, he was Mu Hongyu's backer. Although Song Qingnian had always been arrogant and looked down on people, he wasn't stupid. He knew who he could offend and who he couldn't. Jian Shai of the Dragon Tooth Mountain was an extremely protective person. Even his father didn't dare to go against Jian Shai, let alone him. He snorted coldly, waved his sleeves, and turned his face away. The young man walked in front of Chu Luyue. He smiled warmly and politely. Miss Chu, I am Zhu Hong. Before we came, the mountain master and the young master told us to take good care of you. Would you be willing to come with us on this trip to the Great Desolate Swamp? Jian Shai and Jian Fengqi. Chu Luyue froze for a moment. When she saw the sincere expressions on the faces of Zhu Hong and the others, her eyebrows curved. All right. Thank you in advance. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website. Chapter 687. She had used a special method to forcefully store the force in her body. Although it was quite a lot, it couldn't withstand such a long period of consumption. One had to know that she couldn't absorb the energy of heaven and earth and convert it into her own force. Who knew how long it would take for her to come out of the mystic forest? Just as Sheng Wanwan was hesitating, dark clouds suddenly gathered in the distant sky. The originally clear sky quickly darkened. From afar, it looked like a drop of thick ink had suddenly spread out on a blue painting. Roar! An earth-shattering roar suddenly resounded through the forest. It made one's mind tremble. What's that? Sheng Wanwan faintly sensed a dangerous aura and asked. Mu Qinghe took a look and said, that should be a high-level fiend about to break through. To be able to cause such a phenomenon. Could it be a 9th-grade fiend? Although a normal high-level fiend's breakthrough would cause quite a commotion, it definitely wouldn't be to this extent. The dark clouds in the sky quickly gathered and expanded, beginning to cover the vast mystic forest. The last general has never seen such a situation before, but it should be a 9th-grade fiend. Jiang Yuqing, who was beside him, finally spoke. Sheng Wanwan's eyes lit up. The worry and uneasiness in her heart all dissipated, leaving only curiosity and desire. If that 9th-grade fiend could successfully break through, it would be a divine beast. By then, not only would she be able to obtain the divine beast's blood, but she would also be able to take the divine beast under her command. Once her Yuan meridian recovered, she would be able to form an official contract. To be able to command a divine beast, just thinking about it made her excited. One had to know that in the entire Tianling dynasty, apart from the Taizu, no one had ever formed a contract with a divine beast. Even Sheng Wanyu back then had only formed a contract with a 9th-grade 9-colored heavenly pheasant. It was still a step away from becoming a divine beast. And this step might seem simple, but it was actually a huge gap. If she could form a contract with a divine beast, she would be able to easily crush Sheng Wanyu. Sheng Wanwan slowly clenched her fists in her sleeves. Her throat was a little dry, and the blood in her body seemed to be flowing faster. Along the way, she had heard too many comments about Sheng Wanyu. No, it should be said that ever since she occupied this position, she had been compared to Sheng Wanyu. Whether it was her talent in cultivation, the realm she had reached, or even her appearance and demeanor, everything was unavoidable. And she was almost completely defeated. Even though Sheng Wanyu had died in an undignified manner, it was still irreplaceable in many people's eyes. What about her? Not only did he have to try his best to cover up his physical condition every day, but he also had to deal with all kinds of things that happened in the Tianling dynasty. He also had to be under the spotlight of Sheng Wanyu. Sheng Wanyu was like this when he was alive. She was already dead, but her soul still lingered around. Sheng Wanwan had had enough. This made her extremely eager to quickly recover her Yuan meridian and increase her strength. She wanted to prove to everyone that she was better than Sheng Wanyu. Such an opportunity is hard to come by. This time, I will definitely obtain the divine beast's blood for my father. With that said, Sheng Wanwan moved forward, heading straight for the direction where the dark clouds were gathering. Jiang Yuqing looked at the dark clouds in the sky. His expression froze for a moment before he followed Sheng Wanwan. Mu Qinghe quickly led the way with his men. The group of people headed toward the mystic forest in a grandiose manner. After passing through the gray triangle, the group entered the mystic forest. At first glance, this forest looked no different from an ordinary forest. However, because Mu Qinghe had warned them of the dangers, everyone used their force to set up a barrier around themselves before entering the mystic forest. Chu Luiyue looked up at the lush forest. His eyes flickered slightly as he asked the legendary three-eyed eagle in his mind. Do you know what kind of demonic beast is breaking through in there? The legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast, so it should be able to sense this. It's quite far from here, and the other party seems to be hiding its aura on purpose. I can't tell what kind of demonic beast it is for now. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice was much lower and colder. However, to be able to hide its aura so thoroughly, it shouldn't be an ordinary person. Chu Luiyue was also a little surprised. It seemed that there was really an extraordinary existence in this mystic forest. She hid the expression in her eyes. Like the others, she used her force to set up a barrier around herself and walked forward. In the forest, there were thick piles of fallen leaves. Stepping on them, they made a squeaking sound. A gentle breeze blew over, causing the leaves to rustle. Other than these sounds, the entire forest was quiet. Many people couldn't hide their curiosity. As they walked, they looked around. At a glance, this mystic forest seemed no different from an ordinary forest. However, thinking of Mu Qinghe's previous warning, everyone was still cautious, afraid that something would go wrong. After entering the lush forest, it was difficult to see the situation in the distance. However, the roars that came from time to time became clearer and clearer. This made Sheng Wanwan feel a little relieved. They were indeed getting closer and closer. Why is it so quiet here? After walking for a distance, Jiang Yuqing was the first to sense that something was wrong and asked. Elder Qiushi stroked his beard and explained, probably because a 9th grade magical beast is about to break through here, so the other magical beasts are temporarily hiding. Rumor has it that when a magical beast of this level breaks through, it will summon Tianlei. Only by enduring it can it be considered a success and become a real divine beast. Ordinary magical beasts naturally have to be obedient. Elder Duanmu Chun beside him also nodded in agreement. Elder Qiushi is right. This kind of scene has only appeared in rumors. I didn't expect to encounter such a thing as soon as we arrived at the Great Desolate Swamp. I have to say that it's a great blessing. In this world, there were countless people who wanted to see it but couldn't. Hearing this, Jiang Yuqing was relieved. I see. Elder Qiushi smiled and said, didn't Vice Admiral Mu also say that he has never seen such a scene? I think it's because Her Royal Highness the Third Princess disregarded the danger and came to find the medicine in person. That's why we just happened to make it in time. Sheng Wanwan was also in a good mood. As long as I can help Father, I can do anything. Besides, with everyone accompanying me, I have even less fear. Now, as long as we can find that magical beast, wait for it to break through to become a divine beast, then take its blood and bring it back to Father. At this moment, the sky above everyone's head suddenly darkened. Many people looked up. What's going on? Why did the sky suddenly turn dark? Could it be that the dark clouds have gathered here? It can't be so fast, right? Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the crowd. Look! That tree is moving. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 688. A single stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Countless pairs of eyes followed that person's hand and saw a tree that was as thick as a person moving slowly to the right of the group. Upon closer inspection, there seemed to be something moving under the thick layer of leaves. And it was this movement that caused the tree to move to the side. Poof! A tree root that was as thick as an arm suddenly emerged from the fallen leaves. It turned out that there were several roots of the tree under the pile of leaves. Seeing this strange scene, everyone was dumbfounded. Mu Qinghe glanced at it and explained with a straight face, it's just a small matter. This is Wan Yeshan. Its roots are buried very shallowly underground, and it can move on its own under special circumstances. Everyone was enlightened. I see, the Huang Swamp is indeed the Huang Swamp, even the trees are different, that gave me a fright just now. I thought something big was going to happen. Wait a minute, didn't Lieutenant Mu just say that it would only move under special circumstances? So, is it doing this because the 9th grade fiend is about to break through? Other than the Black Cavalry, the disciples of the other sects were all discussing. Mu Hongyu was watching when she suddenly felt something and looked towards her arms. It was the golden mane bear cub that came out. It hugged Mu Hongyu's arm and shook its head uneasily, as if it was warning her about something. Tsong Tsong. What's wrong? Mu Hongyu asked curiously. The golden mane bear cub let out a low whimper and turned to look at the moving Wan Yeshan. It then started making a fuss in Mu Hongyu's arms again. Almost a year had passed, and the golden mane bear cub had grown a lot. Mu Hongyu could barely hold it in her arms with its current size. If it kept moving around, Mu Hongyu wouldn't be able to handle it. She tried to comfort Song Tsong in her arms while looking at Chu Luyue. She lowered her voice and asked worriedly, Luyu, do you feel that something is wrong? Song Tsong wouldn't act like this for no reason. It seems a little uneasy. Chu Luyue followed the golden mane bear cub's gaze and frowned. She had seen Wan Yeshan escape before, so she wasn't shocked when she saw this. But the golden mane bear cub did look a little strange. Could it be because of the 9th grade fiend that was about to break through? Thinking of this, Chu Luyue shouted in her heart. Dumpling. As soon as she said that, a red shadow appeared in front of her. Tuanzi blinked its round eyes and looked at the golden mane bear cub in Mu Hongyu's arms. It was deep in thought. Then, it jumped into Chu Luyue's arms. Then, Chu Luyue easily caught its tail. With a gentle tug, the claws that had just reached the coat were forced to let go. Don't learn good things. Chu of her of a hand of Tsong of her. Dumpling, which was hanging upside down in her arms, also swayed. We're both fiends, but why is there such a big difference? It just missed its master's embrace. The guy next to it was so big, but its master didn't even dislike it. On the other hand, it couldn't even touch a strand of its master's hair. Comparing beasts really makes beasts angry. Looking at Dumpling's watery eyes, Chu Luyue was indifferent. She asked, do you feel that something is wrong? Dumpling was stunned. It hugged her wrist and turned around. Then, it obediently squatted on her hand and turned to look at Wan Yeshan, who was moving away. A dark light flashed in its eyes, but it quickly disappeared. Then, it scratched its head and looked at Chu Luyue. It shook its head hard. Nothing. Look. Wan Yeshan over there is moving too. A voice came from the crowd. And over there. No. It seems like all the trees here are moving. It was unknown who had shouted. The whole group was silent for a moment. Chu Luyue looked around and her expression turned serious. As expected. All the Wan Yeshan around her were moving quietly. The key was that they were moving in different directions. At a glance, it was extremely chaotic. Chu Luyue had seen such a situation before. But that time, only one area of Wan Yeshan moved, and they were all moving in the same direction to avoid danger. But now, Dumpling climbed onto her shoulder and obediently curled into a ball. It seemed to unintentionally glance at the golden mane bear cub. The golden mane bear cub seemed to have felt something. It gradually calmed down and leaned into Mu Hongyu's arms. Mu Hongyu saw that it had finally calmed down. She calmed it down and coaxed it for a while before finally letting it go back. She said uncertainly, it was probably shocked by the 9th grade fiend just now. Chu Luyue knitted her brows slightly as an ominous feeling rose in her heart. Vice Admiral Mu, what's going on with these Wan Yeshan? When Sheng Wanwan saw this, she panicked a little. Mu Qinghe's expression was serious. The last general has never encountered such a situation before. Sheng Wanwan's expression was a little ugly. Her tone was a little sarcastic. Vice Admiral Mu, you've been in Dahuang Swamp for 10 years, and you've never seen this place. It seems like you don't know this place that well. Mu Qinghe's brows moved slightly. Her voice was a little cold. The Huang Swamp is vast. Other than this mystic forest, there are many other dangerous places. The last general led the army to quell the rebellion. Wherever the enemy is, we will fight. Naturally, it's impossible for us to stay in one place and not move. But the last general dares to say that no one in the Tianling dynasty is more familiar with this place than the last general. If the last general has never seen it, then it's even more impossible for the others to have seen it. Sheng Wanwan was embarrassed by her words. Her face was red and white. Sensing the various gazes from the surrounding people, Sheng Wanwan only felt embarrassed. This consort was just asking casually. Vice Admiral Mu, why do you have to be like this? She only said one sentence, but Mu Qinghe refuted her so much. And in front of everyone. He really didn't take her seriously. Jiang Yuqing frowned and looked at Sheng Wanwan disapprovingly. They had to rely on Mu Qinghe for this trip. She actually questioned his ability at this time. Wasn't she just looking for trouble? Mu Qinghe had been fighting here for several years and had experienced life and death. To him, these words should be the most serious humiliation. That's enough, Vice Admiral Mu won't lie. Since he said that he hasn't seen it, it can only mean that this matter is indeed strange. It's very likely that there's a 9th grade magical beast trying to break through there. Don't be too calculative. The most important thing now is to find that 9th grade magical beast, isn't it? If we're late, won't all our efforts be in vain? Jiang Yuqing came out to smooth things over. At the mention of the 9th grade magical beast, Sheng Wanwan finally swallowed the anger in her heart and continued to walk forward. She had to hurry. After all, the force stored in her body was constantly being depleted. Your Highness, the situation is chaotic now. Please don't be rash. Mu Qinghe had just opened his mouth when an angry roar suddenly came from afar. Crack! The ground under everyone's feet instantly cracked. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 689. Protect Her Highness. Elder Chushi reacted very quickly and shouted loudly. The people around them, especially the black cavalry, rushed over. But even though they were fast, the ground cracked even faster. Ravines quickly spread out. Everyone scattered and fled. Even so, some people still fell into the cracks in the ground. The whole team immediately fell into chaos. Many of the slower Wan Yeshan also couldn't escape the fate of falling into the cracks. Looking at the many broken or even disappearing Wan Yeshan, Chu Lue finally understood why they fled in such a hurry just now. Crack! A muffled sound was heard. Chu Lue looked down and saw a crack spreading rapidly from her feet. Dumpling suddenly jumped up from her shoulder and ran forward. Dumpling! Chu Lue exclaimed. Then, she saw Dumpling passing through those cracks and running toward the depths of the mystic forest. Come back! Dumpling paused, turned around, and glanced at her. Then, it went inside again. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. Is this Dumpling calling me over? What does it want to do? Chu Liyue didn't have time to think. She gritted her teeth and quickly followed it. Lu Yu, where are you going? Mu Hongyu only saw a blur before Chu Liyue disappeared on the spot. She looked confused as she followed Chu Liyue's back view and shouted. A cold wind blew past her ears. It turned out that Chang Wanzhou had already followed behind her silently. Hey, Mu Hongyu wanted to call out to them, but she saw that the two of them had gradually disappeared into the distance. She glanced at Yi Ranran. What do we do now? Yi Ranran's eyes widened. Follow them, of course. Before she came, she told the pavilion master and master that she definitely wouldn't be a burden to Lu Yu and Wanzhou. Even if what lay ahead was unknown and dangerous, she still had to go. Mu Hongyu nodded firmly. Good. Let's go. After that, the two of them took a deep breath and followed him almost at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the four of them left one after another. At this moment, the forest was in a state of chaos. The ground was filled with crevices, and everyone was trying their best to escape. For a moment, no one noticed that these people had disappeared. On the other hand, with the help of Elder Qiushi and Elder Duanmu, Sheng Wanwan was much more relaxed. After an unknown period of time, the chaotic situation finally calmed down. The ground was covered with gullies that were so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. Some of them were even wide enough to swallow a person. It was a horrifying sight. In just a short while, countless trees were destroyed in the originally lush forest. Many people were injured because they couldn't dodge in time. Broken wood, broken leaves, dust, blood. At first glance, it was a complete mess. Sheng Wanwan took a deep breath. Her face was still filled with anger and panic. What exactly is going on? Could it be an earthquake? Mu Qinghe frowned. She glanced at the sky that was getting darker and darker. I'm afraid, that's not it. If I'm not wrong, this should be caused by that 9th grade fiend. Jiang Yuqing followed Mu Qinghe's line of sight and looked over. What kind of fiend is it? It hasn't broken through to become a divine beast, but it has such powerful strength. It wasn't that he hadn't seen a 9th grade fiend before. Not to mention others, just Sheng Wanyu back then had a 9th grade 9-colored heavenly pheasant. But it didn't seem to be this powerful. With just a roar, it actually cracked the ground within a radius of several miles. Sheng Wanwan bit her lip. Her emotions were complicated. On one hand, she was a little afraid, but on the other hand, she also wanted to see what kind of fiend it was. It's already so powerful when it hasn't broken through. When it really becomes a divine beast. Wouldn't it be even more unimaginable? Jiang Yuqing unintentionally moved his feet and suddenly felt that he seemed to have stepped on something strange. He looked down. What's this? After sweeping away the fallen leaves and dust, he then saw that he was actually stepping on a thumb-sized tree root. So it's Wan Yashan's tree root. Jiang Yuqing heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. The commotion just now was too big, and many Wan Yashan trees collapsed one after another. The tree roots were all exposed outside. He lifted his leg and wanted to kick that tree root away. But the moment his leg touched that tree root, he saw that the tree root suddenly elongated and directly wrapped around his leg. Jiang Yuqing knitted his brows and vaguely felt that something was amiss. He lifted his leg and wanted to break free, but he realized that the tree root was very tightly wrapped around him. Jiang Yuqing's face turned cold, and he swung his knife. Chew! That tree root suddenly swung and threw Jiang Yuqing into a deep gully. Yuqing! Eldest young master! When the crowd saw this scene, they all exclaimed in shock. Quite a few people rushed over and wanted to pull Jiang Yuqing. But due to the chaos just now, the crowd wasn't close to each other. In addition, things happened too suddenly, so they didn't even have time to do anything. Jiang Yuqing's figure disappeared into that gully. Vice Admiral Mu. What's going on? Questioned Sheng Wanwan angrily. But before Mu Qinghe could say anything, he suddenly felt that something was amiss and looked down. His legs were actually tightly wrapped around by the tree root at some point in time. In actual fact, it wasn't just him. Almost everyone present encountered the same thing at the same time. Chew! Chew chew! However, in the blink of an eye, the others were also thrown into different gullies. Even Sheng Wanwan didn't have time to say anything before she was directly dragged down by the tree root beside her feet. Very quickly, everyone's figures disappeared into the forest. Then, the gullies on the ground slowly closed up. As for the rolling leaf firs that had collapsed and torn apart, they quickly recovered to their original state. A gust of wind blew past, and countless fallen leaves piled up. The mystic forest returned to its original state as if nothing had happened. Roar! That earth-shattering roar was heard again. Dark clouds rolled in the sky, and the entire forest was dark. A faint red mist began to spread out. Wherever the red mist drifted, the leaves quickly withered and then fell down. In just a short while, the originally lush foliage had all fallen off, leaving only the bare trees. But everything didn't stop. Red mist rose in spirals, and without a sound, the tree branches also withered. Needless to say, the tree trunks curled up and shrunk very badly. At one glance, under the dark sky, the withered trees in this forest actually looked like skeletons baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. It was eerie and terrifying. Dumpling's speed was extremely fast, and she kept running inside. Every time she ran a certain distance, she would turn back to look at Chu Luiyue to make sure that she was following her. Then, she would continue to move forward. Chu Luiyue followed closely behind like this. Dumpling was fine just now. It was only when the ground began to crack that she suddenly became strange. The more she went in, the more Chu Luiyue was sure of her guess. Dumpling really wanted to take her somewhere. Looking at Dumpling's nimble figure, Chu Luiyue's heart was filled with doubts. How could Dumpling be so familiar with this mystic forest? Digression, it seemed that the update system had gone crazy again. She didn't know if these chapters could be displayed normally. Continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users who want to add more chapters, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 690. For a moment, Chu Luiyue even thought that Dumpling had been here before. However, this thought only flashed past her mind. The first time she saw Dumpling was in the forest outside country Yao Chen's capital. This was the Tianling dynasty's Dahuang swamp. The two places were thousands of miles apart, and there was also Heaven's Canopy. No matter how she thought about it, it was impossible. Chu Luiyue followed Dumpling and kept moving forward. Chang Wanzhou quickly caught up. After a while, Mu Hongyu and Yi Ranran also came over. Chu Luiyue was relieved to see that everyone was safe and sound. Dumpling left too suddenly just now, and she didn't have time to explain to them. Mu Hongyu followed Chu Luiyue and couldn't help but ask. Luiyue, where are we going now? The mystic forest was eerily quiet. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. In addition, the golden mane bear cub's agitation made her feel uneasy. Chu Luiyue shook her head gently. Dumpling suddenly went in that direction. I don't know where it's going either. Mu Hongyu looked ahead and saw Dumpling waiting for them. It seemed like it didn't suddenly run away for no reason. Is Dumpling bringing us somewhere? Mu Hongyu asked softly. Chu Luiyue nodded. I think so. She didn't know what was going on either. Ah! Look! Yi Ranran, who was following behind them, suddenly exclaimed. He couldn't hide the shock in his voice. Chu Luiyue and the rest heard the sound and immediately turned around. When they saw it, shock flashed across their faces. He saw that the forest behind them had been covered by a black cloud at some point in time, and it was incomparably gloomy. As for those originally lush trees, they had all withered at some point in time, leaving only bare and shriveled silhouettes. In the dark shadows, it was like a malicious spirit had crawled out from the ground. It was arrogant and unbridled. It was terrifying. What's going on? Mu Hongyu stuttered, her eyes full of shock. Who would have thought that the forest that was fine just now would become like this in the blink of an eye? Where are those people? Those people, Mu Hongyu's hand trembled as she pointed at the ghostly place. There seemed to be no one there. Chu Liuyue's pupils constricted as she stared intently. Vaguely, one could see a red mist drifting in the woods. Yi Ranran was the youngest. When she saw this scene, she was also frightened and couldn't help but ask, Is it because we walked too far, so we can't see them? They should still be there, right? The rest of them didn't speak. There was an eerie silence around them. Yi Ranran's eyes reddened as tears welled up in her eyes. She subconsciously looked at Chu Luyue as if she was asking for help. Luyu, what's going on? In fact, she also knew how unreliable her conjecture was. They were indeed a distance away, but there were thousands of people there. If they were still there, how could they not see them? Although the forest was dark, if one looked carefully, they could still see the outlines of the trees and leaves. It didn't make sense that so many people couldn't see them. The most terrifying thing was that those people had disappeared without a trace. If she hadn't inadvertently turned around to take a look, she probably wouldn't have known that such a big thing had happened. Chu Luyue pulled her over and comforted her. Don't worry. That should be the miasma in the mystic forest. The miasma is extremely poisonous and can cause people to hallucinate. The miasma has already spread in this direction. Maybe what we're seeing now isn't the real scene. Yi Ranran felt a little relieved. Oh really? Chu Luyue gave her a reassuring look and patiently persuaded her. Think about it. We're all fine. There are so many of them. How could anything happen to them? Not to mention the elders and the disciples of the sect, just the Black Cavalry alone is extremely strong. With Vice Admiral Mu leading them, they should be fine. Hearing this, Yi Ranran felt that it made sense and couldn't help but believe it more. Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Luyue with a hint of worry in her eyes. Chu Luyue shook his head calmly. No matter what, this place is very dangerous now. We have to leave as soon as possible. When it's safe, we'll think of a way to meet up with those people. Yi Ranran was very convinced by Chu Luyue and quickly nodded in agreement. With Chu Luyue around, she felt like she had a pillar of support. The only thing she could do now was to try her best not to cause trouble. Seeing that Chang Wanzhou and Mu Hongyu next to her seemed calmer than him, Yi Ranran felt guilty and blamed himself. I'll listen to Lu Yu. Chu Luyue finally looked up. The countless withered trees in the shadows were like human-shaped skeletons, screaming and groaning in pain. She hid the emotions in her eyes and turned to continue chasing after Dumpling. Let's go. The few of them were extremely fast, and the wind whistled in their ears. As Chu Luyue ran forward quickly, she thought about everything that had just happened. The red fog was miasma, but it was not just miasma. She had been to the mystic forest before. Generally speaking, miasma would only appear in the forest in the evening. But now, not only was the time wrong, but the color was also wrong. The real miasma was pale white, no different from ordinary smog, and not this strange red color. Moreover, she had never seen those trees in such a state. If they had been there just now. Chu Luyue looked up at Dumpling in front of her and frowned. Could it be that? Dumpling knew that something like this would happen, so she deliberately led them away. But how did Dumpling know? It even knew where to run to. Chu Luyue had long known that Dumpling was different from ordinary blood ferrets, but only now did she realize that she seemed to have underestimated it. Perhaps it was because the scene just now was too impactful, but for the next period of time, the few of them remained silent. No one spoke, and they just moved forward at full speed. Even if they did not turn back, they seemed to be able to feel the invisible chill approaching. After an unknown period of time, Dumpling stopped again. This time, it did not continue to move forward. Chu Luyue rushed to Dumpling's side in a spurt of energy. Chang Wanzhou and the others followed closely. After standing still, Chu Luiwei realized that there was a small stream flowing in front of Dumpling. It squatted on the shore obediently. Dumpling. Chu Luiwei called out to it. Dumpling raised its head and jumped onto her shoulder. Then, it raised its paw and pointed at the stream. Chu Luiwei looked intently and her gaze froze. The stream was sparkling with colorful light. It was incomparably gorgeous. Digression: I had something to do at home in the afternoon, so I'm sorry. The 5th update is about 9 o'clock. To express my apology, I'll update tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.